Chapter 845. Prophet of the Fifth Dimension. Lien Qian was very clear that whether it was the fifth dimension or the fourth dimension, no one could kill a prophet. As long as he did not want to die, absolutely no one could kill him. Since he would not die, where did he go? After a while, Lien Qian shook her head, no longer thinking about this question. The most important thing now was to return to the fifth dimension. Although it was dangerous to return, it meant that there was a greater chance of finding her master. At this time, Lien Qian withdrew her thoughts and looked not far away. In the distance, Yi Xian stood up. Under the restoration of the spring of life, his injuries were recovering extremely quickly. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the black lightning. Avoid its sharpness, find its flaw, and kill it in one strike. After pondering for a long time, Yi Xian suddenly slashed upwards, and a sword qi pierced through the air. However, before this sword qi could approach the black lightning, it disappeared without a trace. At this time, the black lightning suddenly fell from the sky at an extremely fast speed, so fast that Yi Xian's scalp went numb. Without any hesitation, he turned around and ran. His speed was also very fast, and in the blink of an eye he disappeared into the horizon. Lien Qian, Yi Xian's aura disappeared, and the black lightning paused in the air for a moment before returning to its original position. Seeing that the black lightning did not chase after him, Yi Xian stopped. At this time, Lien Qian appeared beside him and Yi Xian smiled awkwardly. Lien Qian looked at Yi Xian. "You continue." Yi Xian nodded. He looked at the black lightning and his brows deeply wrinkled. The power of this black lightning far exceeded his, and it was impossible to resist it head-on. However, if he did not resist it head-on, how could he win? At this time, Lien Qian suddenly took out a piece of wood that was as long as an arm. She looked at Yi Xian. "This piece of wood, where do you think is the easiest to break?" Yi Xian said, "Naturally, the middle." Saying this, he was stunned. The middle? At this moment he suddenly understood. Flaw. When facing an enemy, if he could find the opponent's flaw, wouldn't it be twice the result with half the effort? The answer was naturally. Yi Xian looked up at the black lightning. What was the flaw of this black lightning? Lien Qian asked, "Do you know what the realm of ordinary swordsman is?" Yi Xian looked at Lien Qian. Lien Qian said softly, "The so-called ordinary sword is actually the essence seeing through the essence. Just like this piece of wood in my hand, you said that it would break easily if you used force from the middle. That's true, but if we look further and more thoroughly, you'll realize that if you use fire, it would actually be easier to destroy it. Of course, the difference in strength is too great. Fighting the weak with the strong, you can use any kind of strength. But in order to defeat the strong, you have to find a way to use your strengths to attack the opponent's weaknesses." As she spoke, she looked at the wooden stick in her hand. Everything in this world has its counter. For example, if an ordinary person wanted to break this piece of wood in my hand, it would not be easy, so they would choose to use knives, saws, axes, or fire. Yi Xian was silent. Lien Qian continued, "You're fighting someone stronger than you. The gap in strength is huge. If you still insist on fighting head-on, that would be foolish. Do you understand?" Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." Lien Qian continued, "The so-called ordinary sword refers to the essence of all things. It's not easy to see through the essence of all things, but you have to walk in this direction." Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Is the sword of the plain-dressed woman an ordinary sword?" "More than that." Lien Qian said in a deep voice, "She's definitely far more than the mortal realm. As to what level she's reached, I don't know and I can't evaluate because I'm not qualified." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "I understand." After saying that, he looked up at the black divine thunder in the sky. How could he defeat this black divine thunder? Yi Xian fell into deep thought. Flaws. He knew that he had to find flaws, but flaws were not that easy to find. Lien Qian glanced at Yi Xian, but did not say anything. Yi Xian had to rely on himself. At this moment, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly lit up. "Got it." Lien Qian looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already in the sky. At this moment, the lightning suddenly fell. However, at this moment, Yi Xian disappeared. He entered the emptiness realm. The lightning suddenly stopped in the air because it had lost its target. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared behind the lightning, and at the same time he slashed at the lightning with his sword. Boom! The lightning shook violently, and Yi Xian was directly sent flying. However, as soon as he flew out, he disappeared. He entered the emptiness realm again. The lightning was stunned. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above its head, and stabbed down with his sword again. Boom! The lightning shook violently and countless bolts of lightning shook the surroundings. Yi Xian was sent flying again, but just like before, he entered the emptiness realm again. The lightning was silent for a moment. Suddenly, it shook violently and an expanse of lightning erupted. In an instant, the entire sky was turned into nothingness. Yi Xian was right beside that bolt of lightning. At this moment, he was rather shocked because he noticed that the energy of that bolt of lightning didn't cause any substantial harm to him. Of course, he was still affected by the shattering of this space. However, with his physical body, it was practically not affected at all. In other words, so long as he entered the emptiness realm, he would be invincible during this period of time. At this moment, he truly realized how terrifying the boundless sword was. This sword technique was meant for assassins. Of course, he could only execute the boundless sword 3 times in a short period of time. In other words, he could only enter the emptiness realm 3 times in a short period of time. Now he didn't choose to attack again. Instead, he retreated to the side and started to recuperate. Not far away, the lightning was still wreaking havoc. It was obvious that it was very irritable. Just like that, the lightning continued for about an hour before it finally stopped. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of it again. The lightning instantly shook violently, and an expanse of lightning shook. However, Yi Xian disappeared again. The lightning shook in the starry sky, and the entire starry sky directly trembled. Below, Lian Chen shook her head and smiled. She knew what method Yi Xian was using. Grind. I can't beat you, but I will grind you to death. Needless to say, this was also a method. In this way, Yi Xian grinded it bit by bit. During this period, he was still very careful because the power of the lightning was too strong. It was not something that he could withstand. Therefore, he could only rely on grinding, not brute force. In the past, when he fought with others, he relied on the executing heaven sword in his hand and his strong physical body to fight head-on. But now, he was fighting the strong as the weak, so he could not use brute force. And now, the lightning was being ground down by him until it became more and more irritable. While Yi Xian was cultivating in an unknown area, a woman was slowly walking in the void. The woman had a head of silver white hair, a petite figure, and a calm but indifferent gaze. After an unknown amount of time, she suddenly stopped. At this moment, 3 old men suddenly appeared in front of the woman. The 3 old men hurriedly knelt down, and the leading old man said in a trembling voice, "Master, you've returned." The woman slowly closed her eyes. "Tell me about the current 5th dimension." The old man said in a deep voice, "Since the prophet disappeared, the order of the 5th dimension has suddenly become chaotic. Although that person from the heaven domain is still there, Master also knows that without the prophet's support, she does not have the ability to rule the 5th dimension." Saying this, he paused and then said, "As far as we know, these years she has been frantically searching for the prophet, but there is not the slightest clue." After a moment of silence, the woman said, "What is her current strength?" The old man shook his head. "No one knows because she has not appeared for a very long time." The woman nodded. "Continue." The old man said, "Besides her, the master of the southern sky dome realm, Jian Shui, is also searching for the prophet. She is even crazier. In order to find the prophet, she has already entered the unknown void dimension and has not returned." Void dimension. Hearing this, the woman's eyes narrowed. That was an unknown dimension. In history, only one person had entered and returned. That was the prophet. After he came out, he smiled and said, "The world is really mysterious." The woman said, "What about the Myriad Dimensional Academy?" The old man said, "At first, after the prophet disappeared, they searched for him. But later, the new master of the Myriad Dimensional Academy, Chen Tian, stopped searching. Instead, he started searching for the world prison pagoda that the prophet once left. However, the female teacher of the Myriad Dimensional Academy is still searching." Female teacher. Hearing this, the woman looked at the old man. "What realm is she now?" The old man shook his head. "I don't know. The last time she appeared was 1,000 years ago. At that time, she appeared in the immortal residence forest where the prophet once lived. At that time, she was riding a little donkey and holding a scroll." After a moment of silence, the woman said softly, "She still can't let it go." The old man hesitated before asking, "This subordinate doesn't understand why she is so persistent in searching for the prophet." The woman said, "When she was 6 years old, her parents discovered that she was born with a missing soul and a physical body. Moreover, she was mentally deficient and could not cultivate for the rest of her life. Then she was abandoned in a mass grave and left to fend for herself. It was the prophet who passed by and took her away. Although her soul was missing, she was the most accomplished person under the prophet. If she liked to fight, the current master of the Myriad Dimensional Academy would not be that Chen Tian." The old man nodded slightly. This female teacher's prestige in the Myriad Dimensional Academy was very high. No, it should be said that her prestige in the entire fifth dimension was very high. This was because she did not fight and was kind to others. At this time the old man suddenly said, "Master, we already know that the world prison pagoda is in the hands of a youth called Yi Xian in the fourth dimension." Yi Xian. The woman's eyes suddenly flickered. "I know." The old man said in a deep voice, "Qin Tian is preparing to make a move. It is said that his target is not only that youth Yi Xian, but also a female swordsman. This time they are prepared to do it for real." At this point he paused before saying, "Master, this pagoda can open the all-creation book house. Therefore this subordinate made the decision to send people there. As long as Qin Tian makes a move against that female swordsman, our people will make a move against Yi Xian." At that time, the woman suddenly said, "Let them come back." After saying that, she frowned. That was because she had blurted out this sentence without even thinking about it. It was like an instinct. The old man was somewhat startled. "Master." After a moment of silence, the woman said, "Let them come back." The old man looked at the woman and did not dare to refute. He nodded slightly and quietly retreated. After the old man left, the woman opened her palm and a wooden figure appeared in her hand. Looking at the wooden figure, scenes suddenly appeared in her mind. "Wow, brother, do you want to eat fish tonight? It smells so good. Brother, why aren't you eating?" "Brother has eaten. Look, my belly is so big." "Brother, did you only order a bowl of noodles?" "Brother, I ate. Look, my belly is so big." "Brother, if this illness of mine cannot be cured after I die, put my ashes in a small bamboo tube and keep it by your side. I want to be by your side forever, okay? If it cannot be cured, brother will accompany you in death." "What?" "Brother does not want you to be alone in the other world." Chapter 846. After a long time, the woman put away the piece of wood in her hand and said softly, "You are a good brother." After saying that, she disappeared on the spot. In the starry sky there was a tremor of lightning. The surrounding starry sky began to tremble violently under the influence of this tremor of lightning. After a moment of silence, a snow-white sword light suddenly appeared above the head of the lightning. In the next moment, the sword light slashed down in a straight line. Boom! The black lightning trembled violently, and then a wave of lightning surged out. The sky shook violently. However, Yi Xian disappeared again. Grind. Yi Xian was now relying on grinding. In fact, although he could not defeat this black lightning, he had gained a lot. Play to his strengths and avoid its weaknesses, avoid its sharp edges, find its flaws and kill it in one strike. Now he had learned how to play to his strengths and avoid its weaknesses. As for looking for flaws, he had just begun. Looking for flaws was not an easy task. Especially this divine lightning, which seemed to be flawless. However, he knew that there must be a flaw. Beside him, Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian, who was constantly grinding the divine lightning in the distance. She was a little surprised because Yi Xian's comprehension was really good. Although he was not a super monster who could understand with a single point, at least he was working hard. Hard work. Her master had once said that innate talent was bestowed by the heavens, but hard work was more important. If one did not work hard, they would be wasting their talent. And Yi Xian was working hard. This continued for about 10 days. Yi Xian could now fight with this black lightning for about an hour. In this hour, he perfectly resolved many of the black lightning's attacks. However, he still found it difficult to counterattack. This was because once he got close to this black lightning, he would have to face it head-on. With his current strength, he was completely unable to do so. After a while, Yi Xian stopped and returned to Lian Qian's side. He looked at the divine lightning in the sky. "Miss Lian Qian, if I defeat this black lightning, can I directly enter the fifth dimension?" Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. "What are you thinking about?" Yi Xian looked at Lian Qian. "What's wrong?" Lian Qian said, "This divine lightning is only the first stage. You've defeated it, but there's still a second stage, a third stage, a fourth stage, a fifth stage." Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Qian continued, "You still have a long way to go, understand?" Yi Xian nodded. "Understood." Lian Qian glanced at the godly lightning. "Maybe you can think of another way." With that, she turned around and left. On the spot, Yi Xian was stunned. Think of another way? Exchange for what? Yi Xian looked at the divine lightning and pondered for a long time. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and the corners of his lips curled up. He suddenly thought of something. Why did he only use his sword? Thinking of this, Yi Xian shook his head, feeling a little silly. Without thinking too much, he suddenly turned into a beam of sword light and soared into the sky. As soon as Yi Xian made his move, the black lightning in the sky suddenly trembled. Immediately afterward, countless lightning bolts shot out from the sky. At this moment, the space Dao Law suddenly appeared between Yi Xian's brows. In the next moment, a blood-red prisoner word suddenly appeared on the lightning bolt. As this word appeared, the lightning bolt was directly covered by a red light. At the same time, a mysterious force enveloped the black lightning. This time the black lightning seemed to sense danger. It trembled violently and terrifying lightning bolts shot out continuously. At this moment Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. He disappeared again. Secretly, Yi Xian was quite excited at this moment. He had not wanted to use the 6 paths of truth, infinite sword, and sword domain to kill his opponent. Instead, he wanted to see if his strongest attack could pose a threat to his opponent. However, he had not expected that when his sword domain enveloped his opponent, he would make a new discovery, a flaw. Under the envelopment of his sword domain, he discovered the flaw of the lightning bolt. As soon as the lightning bolt stopped, Yi Xian suddenly appeared above it. In the next moment, his sword domain enveloped the lightning bolt. In the blink of an eye, numerous beams of sword light slashed at the lightning bolt. Bang! Countless bolts of lightning exploded, and Yi Xian was instantly blasted flying. When he stopped, he immediately looked up at the lightning bolt. At this moment, the lightning bolt had become slightly illusory, but it quickly condensed. Yi Xian's face instantly sank when he saw this. Right at this moment, the black lightning in the distance suddenly vanished. Yi Xian's pupils constricted abruptly, and he swiftly raised his sword horizontally to block it. Bang! An expanse of lightning erupted before him, and then he was blasted flying. During the process of his flying, lightning bolts exploded incessantly around him. When Yi Xian had stopped, countless lightning bolts were shooting at him like a storm in front of him. Yi Xian was shocked, and he didn't hesitate to enter the emptiness state. Countless bolts of lightning flashed through the starry sky, and it was extremely shocking. This time it continued for around 2 hours before it stopped. Below, Yi Xian looked at the lightning that covered the starry sky above him, and he felt a lingering fear. He'd sensed that the black lightning had really been infuriated just now. Why had it been infuriated? That was because his sword had injured it. Meanwhile, Lian Qian appeared by Yi Xian's side. She looked at the black lightning and said softly, "That sword strike of yours can be stronger." Yi Xian looked at Lian Qian and she said, "Burst out with speed. You can utilize the spatial Dao laws to enhance your sword strike, allowing your sword strike speed and strength to reach its limits. Coupled with the characteristics of your sword domain, you can find its weakness and give it a lethal strike. Of course, it's not very possible for you to kill it with your current strength. However, it's already very good." Yi Xian nodded. When he'd first faced the black lightning, he'd almost been instantly killed by it. But after a month of battle, even though he still couldn't defeat it, he was much better than before. Because he could injure the black lightning now. Moreover, the black lightning couldn't injure him as easily as it had in the beginning. He'd improved too much. Meanwhile, Lian Qian suddenly said, "Let it hit you." Yi Xian was stunned. Lian Qian looked at the black lightning and said softly, "This isn't ordinary lightning. If you let it temper your body, not only will your body be greatly strengthened, but you might even gain some special subordinates. For example, you might be immune to lightning in the future." Yi Xian said in a low voice, "Miss Lian Qian, this isn't a joke." Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian and said, "You were blasted by it once, but didn't you survive?" Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Qian said, "This is a superb opportunity to improve your physical body, because your current physical body has already reached an extremely formidable level. If you want to improve it further, then unless you have a great fortuitous encounter, it will be very difficult to do so." Lightning strike. Yi Xian was a little hesitant. Because he still remembered the first time he'd been struck by lightning. It was really unbearable. It could be said that if he hadn't already attained the sword body, he would have been dead. He still had a lingering fear towards the divine lightning. At this moment, Lian Qian said, "The divine lightning can't kill you in one strike. So, if you can get used to the bombardment of the divine lightning, your body will definitely improve to another level. This is a great opportunity for you." Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. "All right." He only had one thought in his mind, and that was to improve his strength. An hour later, Yi Xian raised his head to look at the black divine lightning. He had to admit that he was still a little afraid of it. The power of the divine lightning was too strong. Without much hesitation, Yi Xian transformed into a beam of sword light and shot into the sky. At this moment, the black divine lightning in the sky shook violently, and then it fell straight down. When he sensed the power contained in the divine lightning, Yi Xian's expression changed. To be honest, he wanted to run. However, when he thought of the benefits that the divine lightning would bring him, he decisively abandoned the thought of running. Soon the divine lightning blasted his body. Boom. Yi Xian instantly fell from the sky, and as he fell, bolts of lightning kept exploding on his body. Ah! In the starry sky, Yi Xian's scream suddenly rang out. Soon Yi Xian stopped. At this moment, he had already put a very, very long distance between him and the divine lightning. After the divine lightning blasted him away, it did not choose to pursue him, but retreated to its original position. Yi Xian lay quietly in the starry sky, and his whole body was constantly flashing with lightning. At this moment, he had lost consciousness. His whole body was numb. At this moment, Lian Qian appeared beside Yi Xian. She glanced at Yi Xian and had to admit that Yi Xian's body was a little terrible to look at. Without thinking too much, she waved her right hand and a white bottle appeared beside Yi Xian's mouth. The spring of life. After the spring of life entered Yi Xian's body immediately recovered at an extremely fast speed. Just like that, about an hour later, Yi Xian sat up. At this moment, his body was still sore and numb, as if all the bones in his body had fallen apart. That kind of feeling was a little sour. Lian Qian glanced at Yi Xian's body and said softly, "It really is useful." Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned and then said, "Miss Lian Qian, don't tell me that before this, you weren't sure whether it would be useful or not?" Lian Qian nodded, "I guessed that it would be useful, but reality has proven that it is." Yi Xian, Lian Qian said, "Come, continue. What you need to do now is to continuously use the divine lightning to temper your body, over and over again. In any case, you need to completely adapt to the power of the divine lightning." Yi Xian nodded and he looked up at the black lightning in the sky. Now, he was no longer that afraid of the divine lightning. In any case, he couldn't kill him. What was there to be afraid of? After resting for a while, Yi Xian stretched his body, and then he looked up at the divine lightning in the sky and grinned, "Continue." As soon as he said this, he turned into a ray of sword light and shot into the sky. At this moment, the divine lightning in the sky suddenly descended. An instant later, boom. The entire starry sky suddenly trembled. Chapter 847. After a few breaths, Yi Xian lay down again. Just like before, his whole body was covered in injuries. About an hour later, Yi Xian rushed over again. Just like that, Yi Xian used his body to withstand the heavenly lightning again and again, letting the heavenly lightning temper his body. About 10 days later, his body became more and more capable of withstanding. In the beginning, when he was struck by the heavenly thunder, he was almost killed. Although he didn't die, it took him quite a while to stand up. But now, after being struck by the heavenly thunder, he recovered in 15 minutes at most. This proved that his body was becoming more capable of withstanding. However, this was far from enough. Continue. While Yi Xian was bitterly cultivating, Yi Xian and the other four-dimensional experts also came to this part of the starry sky. When they saw Yi Xian using his body to resist the heavenly lightning, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They had been here for so many years, so they naturally knew how terrifying the heavenly lightning was. But they did not expect that Yi Xian would actually use his body to resist the heavenly lightning. How strong was his body? Everyone became more and more afraid of Yi Xian. Just like that, about 2 months later. On this day, Yi Xian suddenly walked in front of the black lightning. The black lightning directly fell, and a lightning light instantly submerged Yi Xian. The lightning light dissipated and Yi Xian walked out. At this moment, he could completely use his body to resist the black lightning. However, he still could not kill it. The current situation between him and the black lightning was, "You can't kill me and I can't kill you." After its attack failed, the black lightning returned to the sky. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the black lightning. At this moment, the black lightning suddenly trembled violently. Then, it suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning and fell straight down. This time Yi Xian still did not dodge. Facing this black lightning, he no longer had any fear. At this moment, the aura contained in the black lightning suddenly soared. Yi Xian was startled. Before he could react, the black lightning had already submerged him. Boom. In the blink of an eye, the entire starry sky was covered by black lightning. The entire starry sky flickered with lightning, and it was incomparably terrifying. About a quarter of an hour later, Yi Xian slowly walked out of the lightning. At this moment, his body was surrounded by lightning. The black lightning that had struck him had already retreated to the horizon. After a moment of silence, it suddenly disappeared. Seeing this scene, some of the fourth-dimensional experts in the distant starry sky looked at Yi Xian one after another. They knew that Yi Xian had passed the first test. From the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension, there were a total of 5 stages. As for this Yi Xian, he could be considered to have passed the first round. However, the subsequent rounds would only get stronger and stronger. At this moment, Lian Qian appeared in front of Yi Xian. She sized up Yi Xian with a look of surprise in her eyes. Your physical body? When Yi Xian looked at his physical body, he was dumbfounded. Originally, his skin contained countless sword intents and sword chi, but now there was not only sword chi and sword intent, but also thunder and lightning. They had already fused with his sword intent and sword chi. Now he not only had a sword body but also a lightning body. Of course, the toughness of his physical body was a level higher than before. Harvest. Yi Xian took a deep breath. The torture during this period of time had not been in vain. Lian Qian said, "Absorb the sword." Yi Xian looked at Lian Qian. She said, "The foundation of your physical body is extremely good. Even if you make another breakthrough, it won't have any negative effects on you." Yi Xian nodded. Okay. After saying this, he took out a sword and began to absorb it. As soon as the sword entered his body, a wave of pure energy erupted from his body. However, it disappeared without a trace in an instant. All of it had been absorbed by his body. Yi Xian was stunned. Then he took out another sword and absorbed it. As soon as this sword entered his body, it was completely absorbed. Yi Xian did not stop and took out another sword. Just like that, after about an hour, he had absorbed all 30 swords. When he absorbed the last sword, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from his body. Wherever this aura passed, ripples appeared in the space like waves. He had not broken through yet. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and slowly closed his eyes. In his body, waves of powerful aura constantly vibrated. Beside him, Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian and did not disturb him. It was not easy to reach the fate state. The so-called fate state was to know one's destiny. He had to rely on himself. Otherwise, he would be stuck at this step for the rest of his life. Fate. The so-called fate referred to fate. At the beginning of chaos, the fate of all living beings seemed to have been predetermined. It was like birth, old age, sickness, and death. Especially death. Since ancient times, who could avoid death? Where there was life, there would be death. This was the law and the fate of all living beings. And because some people became stronger and stronger, they could feel a trace of their own fate. What was his future fate? Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. He was a little confused. Fate. What was the future? From the beginning until now, he knew that he was different from others. Many powerful people knew him. More accurately, they knew him in his previous life. Previous life? What was his previous life? It was still the same question. His previous life was his previous life, and this life was this life. Fate. Yi Xian took a deep breath. My fate is in my own hands. Boom. A powerful aura erupted from his body. This aura was like a wave that shook the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, the entire starry sky trembled violently. Fate state. At this moment, Grand Elder Qin suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He smiled. Congratulations. Yi Xian opened his eyes and slowly stood up. He clenched his fists and a powerful force gathered in his body. Fate state. At this moment, he understood the true meaning of the fate state. The fate state was not about feeling fate but understanding the meaning of fate. Nothing was destined at birth. For example, the lifespan of humans was only a few decades in the beginning. But through cultivation it could be 100 years, a few hundred years, or even a few thousand years. Fate was in one's own hands. Unless one accepted it, it could not decide one's life. Fate state. Yi Xian relaxed his hands, and the aura emitted from his body immediately calmed down. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, "Congratulations." Yi Xian nodded slightly, then looked at Grand Elder Qin. "Is there something I can help you with, Grand Elder?" Grand Elder Qin nodded slightly. "Young friend, I'm afraid your current strength has reached the Tao-breaking realm." Tao-breaking. Yi Xian said gravely, "What realm are Emperor Shi and the others at?" Tao-breaking? Grand Elder Qin shook his head. "I can only say that they are infinitely close to Tao-breaking. But they have not truly entered the Tao-breaking realm." Yi Xian asked again, "Are there any Tao-breaking experts here?" Grand Elder Qin said gravely, "There are. But very few, only 2. And they haven't appeared for a very, very long time. I don't know if they are still alive." Tao-breaking realm. Yi Xian fell silent. Even in the 4-dimensional universe, he still had a long way to go. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, in the distant horizon, the 5-dimensional barrier suddenly trembled violently. Yi Xian and the other 2 hurriedly looked up. Under everyone's gaze, the fifth dimension under everyone's gazes, the talisman characters on the five-dimensional barrier slowly dissipated. What's going on? Everyone frowned. Lian Qian looked at the five-dimensional barrier, and her pupils constricted. Not good. They're going to destroy the restriction. Destroy the restriction? Yi Xian said gravely, wasn't this set up by the prophet? How could it be destroyed? Lian Qian stared fixedly at the five-dimensional barrier. It was done by one of our own. One of our own? Yi Xian frowned. Miss Lian Qian, what's the meaning of this? Lian Qian said gravely, the Myriad Dimensions Academy. This restriction was set up by Master. If others want to break it, it'll be as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Only our own people can break it. No, not break it, but remove it. At this point she took a deep breath. Someone is using the knowledge Master taught them to remove this restriction. Grand Elder Qin said, this is a good thing. Idiot. Lian Qian suddenly said angrily, this is a good thing? Do you know what's between the four-dimensional universe and the five-dimensional universe? It's a space dimension that you can't cross. Once it's removed, the power of this space dimension will directly devour your four-dimensional universe. Of course, people like you are strong enough to resist this power, but what about others? Is everyone in the four-dimensional universe as strong as you? Once this power enters the four-dimensional universe, not even a blade of grass will grow. Hearing this, Grand Elder Chen was silent. In fact, after cultivating to this point he might have some compassion in his heart, but right now he couldn't sacrifice himself to help Song Mountain. What did Song Mountain have to do with him? Was it selfish? It wasn't selfish. After all, they didn't have the obligation to save the world. In the starry sky, the runes became fewer and fewer. Around them, more and more people appeared. Emperor Shi and Taoist Mountain Ghost also appeared. At this time, many people were excited because they discovered that the restriction was becoming weaker and weaker. Once it disappeared completely, it meant that they could enter the five-dimensional universe. At this time, only a blood-red rune was left in the sky. The rune just floated there, and the barrier had completely disappeared. In the field, someone suddenly said, break this rune and you can directly enter the five-dimensional universe. Hearing this, everyone looked at the blood-red rune. At this time, Lian Qian suddenly said, no. Everyone looked at Lian Qian and she said in a low voice, if you break this rune, you can enter the five-dimensional universe. However, if you break this rune, the power of the spatial dimension will enter the four-dimensional universe. At that time your universe will be destroyed. In the distance, a middle-aged man said indifferently, what does this have to do with us? Lian Qian looked at the middle-aged man and didn't say anything. She knew that these people wouldn't sacrifice their future for the living beings of the four-dimensional universe. This was human nature. She didn't have the qualifications to stand on the moral high ground and criticize them. At this time, a middle-aged man suddenly rushed into the sky. Immediately, a powerful force directly blasted the blood-red rune. Boom! The blood-red rune instantly shattered, and the space there suddenly split open. At this time, a middle-aged man in white appeared in everyone's line of sight. Qintian. Lian Qian, who was beside Yi Xian, suddenly said in a low voice, the current schoolmaster of the Myriad Dimensions Academy. The middle-aged man smiled. If everyone wants to enter the five-dimensional universe, there's one more thing you have to do. After saying this he looked at Yi Xian below. Kill him and use his head to exchange for a pass to the five-dimensional universe. P.S. I'll give everyone another red packet. Remember to snatch it. Chapter 848. Kill Yi Xian. All the spectators were stunned when they heard this. Kill Yi Xian in exchange for a pass. Soon, the expressions of many people became extremely unsightly. Kill with a borrowed knife. This expert from the fifth dimension wanted to borrow their hands to kill Yi Xian. In other words, he wanted them to fight with Yi Xian. Those who had lived to this age naturally understood Qintian's intentions. Not far away, Yi Xian looked at Qintian. It seems that your real target is me. Qintian sized up Yi Xian and smiled. Of course it's you. Yi Xian opened his palm and the World Prison Pagoda appeared in his hand. You want it? Saying this, he suddenly put it away and grinned. I'm not giving it to you. Qintian was not angry. He smiled. It's fine, I can get it myself. Saying this, he looked at the experts from the fourth dimension. This is your only chance in this lifetime. As long as you kill him, I can let you enter the fifth dimension. Kill Yi Xian. Everyone was silent. If Yi Xian was easy to kill, they would definitely not hesitate. However, was Yi Xian easy to kill? The problem was that he was not easy to kill. Moreover, could this person's words be trusted? What if they fought with Yi Xian and both sides were injured? What if he refused to let them enter? Wouldn't that be stupid? At this time, Taoist Mountain Ghost suddenly said, "Your Excellency, we just want to enter the fifth dimension, that's all." Qin Tian looked at Taoist Mountain Ghost and smiled. "But you were born in the fourth dimension." Taoist Mountain Ghost asked, "Can't we go to the fifth dimension if we were born in the fourth dimension?" Qin Tian shook his head and smiled. "That's not it. It's just that I was the one who broke teacher's restriction, so I have the right to decide who can enter or not, right?" Taoist Mountain Ghost still wanted to say something, but Qin Tian said, "I don't have much time, so you better not waste it. Otherwise you will regret it later." Taoist Mountain Ghost fell silent. Everyone else was silent as well. In the air, Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "As long as one is alive, it's fine to not be strong. However, one must know one's own limits. What kind of strength you have, what kind of things you should have. If you overestimate yourself, your ending won't be too good." Yi Xian smiled and said, "If I give you the pagoda, will you let us go?" Qin Tian laughed. "You won't, because you are a swordsman. A swordsman's sword can be broken, but it cannot be bent. Therefore you would never beg for life in this way. I also advise you not to think of playing any tricks. In the face of absolute power, all conspiracies and schemes are useless." Yi Xian smiled. "Why don't you go look for her first?" This she was naturally the woman in a plain dress. Qin Tian laughed and said, "Because you are easier to kill." Yi Xian fell silent. These fellows weren't stupid. They knew how to fight first. At this moment, Qin Tian looked at Taoist Mountain Ghost and the others who were not far away. "Have you thought it through?" Taoist Mountain Ghost looked at Qin Tian. "Do you think we are idiots? No one would attack Yi Xian. Firstly, Yi Xian was not easy to kill. Secondly, even if they killed Yi Xian, Qin Tian might not let them enter the fifth dimension. It was very stupid to pin their hopes on other people's pity." In the air, Qin Tian smiled slightly. "Very good." As he said that, he spread out his palm and pressed down lightly. The space behind him suddenly split open and soon, an extremely powerful aura spread out from behind him. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed when they sensed this force. Dimensional power. This was not something the four-dimensional universe could withstand. In the distance, Taoist Mountain Ghost stared at Qin Tian. "You want to destroy the four-dimensional universe?" "Meh." Qin Tian shook his head and smiled. "Are you kidding me? You should know that it was you who destroyed the last restriction rune. Therefore, you are the ones who want to destroy your universe." As his voice fell, a black gas spread out from behind him. Everywhere this black gas passed, space turned into nothingness and disappeared completely. Sensing the power of this black gas, everyone's expression became extremely ugly. If this endless black gas was allowed to enter the four-dimensional universe, the entire four-dimensional universe would really be devoured. In the air, Qin Tian looked down at everyone and smiled. "Are you afraid?" As he said that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, I can give you a chance. If you hand over the pagoda, then your ancestors." Yi Xian suddenly shouted angrily. In the next moment, a sword light soared into the sky and slashed at Qin Tian. In the air, Qin Tian narrowed his eyes and punched out. Bang! A few dozen feet in front of his fist, the sword light was forced to stop. And at this moment, a blood-red prisoner character appeared above Qin Tian's head. Sensing this, Qin Tian's pupils shrank. Immediately after, he turned around and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already thousands of feet away. Qin Tian stared at Yi Xian with a sinister expression. That Xiao Ta actually recognized you as his master. Yi Xian ignored Qin Tian and turned to look at Taoist Mountain Ghost and the others. "Everyone, we want to go to the fifth dimension, but we will not go in kneeling. Go in kneeling." Hearing Yi Xian's words, the blood of the four-dimensional experts started boiling. They were all people who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years. How could they not have any self-respect? How could they not have any backbone? Yes, everyone wanted to go to the fifth dimension. They all wanted to break through and live forever. But not by kneeling down and begging for it. It was good for people to live, but if they did not have dignity and backbone, then they might as well be dogs. At this time, Taoist Mountain Ghost suddenly said softly, "Little friend, Yi Xian is right. As a person, we must have some dignity and backbone." As he said this, he looked at Qin Tian. "We, the people of the fourth dimension, are indeed not as strong as the experts of the fifth dimension. However, we don't need your charity, nor do we need your pity." Qin Tian laughed. "You have a backbone. Unfortunately, what's the use? Your four-dimensional universe is about to be destroyed. Isn't that right?" Taoist mountain ghost laughed. Today the old man will protect the four-dimensional universe. Not for anything else but to fight for pride. Of course the old man really doesn't like you. As his voice fell, he suddenly turned into a black light and soared into the sky. In the starry sky, he clenched his right hand and pressed it down. He roared, "Sky-supporting pillar." Boom. A huge black hand that was a few hundred meters long suddenly tore through the space above his head, and then the huge hand directly grabbed the black aura. However, as soon as it came into contact with the black aura, the huge hand started to turn illusory. Seeing this, Taoist mountain ghost's expression suddenly became serious. The black gas was stronger than he had imagined. At this time, Emperor Shi, who was not far away, suddenly looked at Qin Tian and laughed. Are the people of the fifth dimension superior to the people of the fourth dimension? I also don't like you. As his voice fell, he suddenly stomped his right foot. Boom. A powerful white beam of light soared into the sky. This white light directly collided with the black gas. Rumble. In the starry sky, the black gas trembled violently. However, this white light was unable to stop them. In the sky, Qin Tian looked down at Emperor Shi and Taoist mountain ghost. He laughed. You don't want to take the road to life, but you insist on taking the road to death. Just because of your so-called backbone and dignity, how ridiculous. As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. A wisp of sword light tore through the battlefield. Qin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Hiss! Before he could finish speaking, a blood-red prisoner character suddenly appeared above his head. At the same time, a mysterious force enveloped him. Sword domain. Qin Tian's expression was calm. He clenched his fists tightly. Boom. The blood-red prisoner character above his head directly became illusory. At the same time, the sword light in front of him was forced to stop. Qin Tian stared at Yi Xian. The sword is a good sword and the divine skill is a good divine skill. Unfortunately, in my eyes, you are too weak. As his voice fell, he fiercely punched out. Boom. Yi Xian instantly appeared tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, the space within thousands of feet behind him directly exploded, turning into nothingness. Qin Tian frowned slightly. Your physical body? He did not expect that Yi Xian would be able to withstand his attack. In the distance, Yi Xian stretched his muscles and then looked at the distant Taoist mountain ghost. At this moment, Taoist mountain ghost suddenly said, Little friend Yi Xian, we can't hold on any longer. Yi Xian looked at the black gas. The black gas was increasing in number. Taoist mountain ghost and Emperor Shi could no longer hold on. After pondering for a moment, Yi Xian looked at Pavilion Elder Chen and the others below. Everyone, if the nest is overturned, how can the eggs remain unbroken? We are now people on the same boat. We will prosper together, and if we suffer together, we will suffer together. Only by joining forces can we survive. At this moment, Qin Tian, who was not far away, suddenly laughed. No, we are only targeting you, not them. Hearing this, the fourth dimension experts suddenly hesitated. At this moment, Pavilion Elder Chen suddenly stood up. Everyone, little friend Yi is right. If the nest is overturned, how can the eggs remain unbroken? If we do not help Taoist Mountain Ghost and little friend Yi now, in the future, we will find that no one will help us. Moreover, at this point, he looked at Qin Tian and laughed sinisterly. Moreover, the old man is also very unhappy with this person. Fight with him. Let them know that the people of the fourth dimension are not ants. We are not people that they can bully as they please. As his voice fell, he directly turned into a beam of white light and soared into the sky. Behind Pavilion Elder Qin Shi and more than 20 top experts of the fourth dimension attacked one after another. Boom boom boom. In the starry sky, as Pavilion Elder Qin and the others attacked one after another, the speed at which the black gas spread instantly slowed down. However, it did not stop. Instead, the black gas increased in number. In the distance, Qin Tian was silent. He had originally wanted to use the experts of the fourth dimension to target Yi Xian, but he did not expect that these people would choose not to. Moreover, these people had come to oppose him. He had to admit that he had underestimated the people of the fourth dimension. Recollecting his thoughts, Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian, who was not far away. I don't want to waste time. Aren't you a swordsman? Then I will let you die under my sword. As his voice fell, a sword suddenly appeared in his hand. The next moment, this sword suddenly flew out and slashed at Yi Xian. The moment this sword appeared, Lian Qian's horrified voice suddenly rang in Yi Xian's mind. Not good, this is the fifth dimension's third sword. It is not something you can resist. At this point she suddenly stopped. Had Yi Xian ever been afraid of a sword? At this moment Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. His face was filled with terror, as if he had been shocked to the extreme. Seeing this, Qin Tian smiled. Chapter 849. A sword descended in a straight line through the starry sky. The sword was completely snow-white, and there was a speck of blood red at its tip. It was like a plum blossom in the snow, and it carried a trace of coldness amidst its beauty. Yi Xian seemed to be extremely terrified as he watched the sword descend. The expressions of Taoist mountain ghost and the others instantly became unsightly when they saw the expression on Yi Xian's face. They could be said to be one with Yi Xian, so they naturally didn't want anything to happen to Yi Xian. Because if something were to happen to Yi Xian, then it was equivalent to losing a formidable ally. But now it seemed like something bad was about to happen. Meanwhile, the sword had arrived above Yi Xian. It was very calm and didn't emanate any energy fluctuations, but everyone knew that it couldn't be ordinary. But right at this moment, Qin Tian's expression suddenly changed. Because he noticed that while Yi Xian had a terrified expression on his face, Yi Xian showed no signs of fleeing or counterattacking. Something's not right. Qin Tian didn't hesitate to withdraw the sword. However, Yi Xian suddenly shot into the sky. He was extremely swift and collided with the sword, and then the sword instantly pierced through his head and into his body. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. What's Yi Xian trying to do? Qin Tian was slightly stunned as well. He hadn't expected that Yi Xian would actually do this. Is he giving his life away? Right at this moment, his pupils constricted. Because he noticed that Yi Xian was completely fine after the sword pierced into Yi Xian's body. Moreover, Yi Xian's aura had grown even stronger. What the hell is going on? Qin Tian stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and his intuition told him that he might have done something extremely stupid. Yi Xian greedily took a deep breath, and his aura rose explosively. This time he didn't suppress it. He couldn't, because the power contained within this sword was too terrifying. It was more terrifying than any sword he had absorbed before. It could be said that this sword was infinitely close to his executing heaven sword and soul-suppressing sword. He had to break through. Yi Xian was shocked. Breaking through at this time? Wasn't that asking for death? Qin Tian also noticed that Yi Xian was about to break through because Yi Xian's aura was still rising crazily. Qin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He was just about to attack when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Qin Tian, you old dog. You're not human." Everyone, Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian. What? Do you want to have a civil battle with me? Yi Xian said angrily. Qin Tian. At this time, Qin Tian suddenly interrupted Yi Xian. You're trying to buy time. That's a good idea. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished, and a powerful force swept down from the sky. Everywhere this force passed, space was instantly reduced to ashes. In front of Qin Tian, the four-dimensional space was as fragile as rotten wood. Yi Xian's face instantly sank when he saw this. He was about to break through now, so how could he resist? Right at this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Xian was stunned when he saw this person. Enlancio. Enlancio stared fixedly at Qin Tian, who was charging down. Break through quickly. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly transformed into a spear light that shot into the sky, and her spear was like a thunderclap that carried the might to pierce through the sky. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it and hurriedly sat down cross-legged. Breakthrough. He had to break through as soon as possible. In midair, Qin Tian watched Enlancio charge at him with an expressionless face, and he smashed his fist against the spear in Enlancio's hand. Boom. The spear light in Enlancio's hand instantly exploded, and at the same time, Enlancio instantly retreated. Because her retreat speed was too fast, her body directly tore through space, and fresh blood unceasingly flowed out of her mouth. Qin Tian's strength was too great, and it wasn't something her body could withstand. Qin Tian didn't care about Enlancio, and he directly charged towards Yi Xian below. Compared to Enlancio, he wanted to get rid of Yi Xian even more, because Yi Xian had given him too many surprises. Just as Qin Tian appeared above Yi Xian's head, a man suddenly blocked in front of Yi Xian. Wuxia. Wuxia looked up at Qin Tian, who was hovering above his head. Suddenly, he let out an enraged roar and charged directly toward Qin Tian. As he did, the illusory image of an old man appeared behind him. This illusory image was even more solid and powerful than before. Clearly, in this period of time, Wuxia's strength had greatly increased. In the air, Qin Tian glanced at Wuxia, and he stomped down with his foot. Boom. The phantom instantly exploded, and Wuxia's entire body fell from the sky. As he fell, his body cracked open layer by layer and fresh blood spurted out. Qin Tian looked down at Yi Xian. He was just about to attack again, when a sword light suddenly appeared behind him. The speed of this sword was faster than lightning. Qin Tian's brows creased slightly, and he turned around and punched out. Rumble. At the point where the fist and sword met, a powerful force suddenly exploded out, and a petite figure retreated explosively in the starry sky. This person was Shao Qi. Shao Qi retreated a few thousand meters before stopping. However, the moment she stopped, she raised her sword above her head with both hands. She stared at the distant Qin Tian, and her sword suddenly slashed downwards. Heaven-breaking sword. A strand of sword light shot out from the tip of Shao Qi's sword. The starry sky was torn apart. This sword, like its name, could break the heavens. In the distance, Qin Tian was expressionless. Just as the sword energy was about to slash his body suddenly became illusory, and then the sword energy mysteriously disappeared. On the other side, Shao Qi's expression suddenly changed, and she suddenly turned around. Instant sword. Just as she finished speaking, her body disappeared like a ray of light. Chi wrong. The space in front of her was suddenly torn apart by countless sword lights. In less than half a breath's time, the space was directly torn apart by thousands of sword lights, and these sword lights appeared almost at the same time. Instant. In fact, it wasn't just one sword instant but 1,000 swords instant. In an instant, 1,000 swords appeared. Meanwhile, the space that was enveloped by the rays of light suddenly exploded apart. Rumble. A figure rapidly retreated in the starry sky. Was Shao Qi. Shao Qi suddenly held her sword vertically between her eyebrows. Protect. As soon as she finished speaking, strands of sword qi suddenly appeared behind her. These strands of sword qi instantly formed a sword shield behind her, and it didn't take long for her to stop. However, a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. In that pitch-black space, Qin Tian walked out. He stared at Shao Qi, and there were actually 3 sword scars on his face. At this moment, he had to admit that although the overall strength of the 4th dimension was far inferior to the 5th dimension, there were still many people in the 4th dimension who were very outstanding. Whether it was Yi Xian just now or these 3 people who just appeared, even in the 5th dimension, they were all at the peak. Especially this little girl in front of him, the strength of her sword Dao had exceeded his expectations. At this moment, Shao Qi and Wuxia and Enlanxiu all arrived beside Yi Xian. Although Wuxia's injuries were more serious, fortunately he had the spring of life, so it wasn't fatal. Shao Qi glanced at Yi Xian below. He still needs an hour. An hour. In other words, they had to stop Qin Tian for an hour. In the distance, Qin Tian glanced at Shao Qi's group of 3. It's time to end this. In the next moment he suddenly vanished. Shao Qi's group of 3's expressions instantly changed. They were just about to attack when Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of them. They were stunned when they saw Yi Xian. He broke through? In next to no time their expressions sank. Because Yi Xian hadn't broken through. Moreover, Yi Xian's aura was extremely chaotic, and he showed signs of qi deviation. Yi Xian stared fixedly at Qin Tian who was charging at him. He suddenly opened his palm, and a strand of sword energy suddenly flew along his arm into his palm. When they saw this strand of sword energy, everyone's expressions changed. Qin Tian even stopped and retreated almost 30 kilometers in a frenzy. Qin Tian stared fixedly at the strand of sword energy in Yi Xian's hand, and his eyes were filled with fear. Yi Xian took a deep breath. It was one of the 3 strands of sword energy that the woman in a plain dress had given him. It could be said that it was his greatest trump card. He never used it. Even if it was extremely dangerous at times, he still hadn't used it. Because he wanted to return it to her when he met her again, and he wanted to tell her that he'd grown up. But at this moment he had no choice but to use it. He knew that even if the 4 of them joined forces, they wouldn't be able to defeat Qin Tian. Moreover, if he allowed Shao Qi and the others to stop Qin Tian, then the 3 of them might die. He didn't want anything to happen to Shao Qi and the others. Moreover, he didn't want Shao Qi and the others to be beaten half to death before he utilized this strand of sword energy. He didn't want anything to happen to them at all. His younger sister had left him all along the way, so he didn't want to lose any more friends. Yi Xian looked at Qin Tian in the distance and said softly, "Go." As soon as he said that, the strand of sword energy in his hand flew out. In the distance, Qin Tian's pupils suddenly shrank, and he suddenly put his hands together. Heaven and earth converge. As soon as he said that, the space in front of him suddenly closed, and at the same time, mysterious forces continuously gathered in front of him. At this moment, the strand of sword light suddenly disappeared. Chen Tian's body suddenly stiffened, and the space in front of him cracked and then disappeared. Everyone looked at Chen Tian, and there was a strand of sword energy in between Chen Tian's eyebrows. He was killed just like that? Everyone was stunned. In the distant endless starry sky, a woman in a plain dress stopped. She tilted her head slightly, and with 2 fingers she gently held a strand of her hair and said softly, "Did you use it?" The strand of sword energy between Chen Tian's eyebrows suddenly vanished, and then Chen Tian's figure instantly became ethereal. Chen Tian stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "It's only just begun." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure vanished. Everyone in the surroundings instantly heaved sighs of relief when they witnessed this scene. But right at this moment, an explosion suddenly resounded in the sky and then a man walked out from there. Everyone was stunned when they saw the man. Chen Tian. It's Chen Tian again. The expressions of everyone here instantly became extremely unsightly. Yi Xian's face had turned gloomy as well. Meanwhile, Lian Qian's voice suddenly resounded in his mind. That person from before was only his clone, and this is his clone as well. Yi Xian spoke solemnly. "How many clones does he have?" Lian Qian replied, "This is his second and final clone, and it possesses 30% of his strength." 30% of his strength. Yi Xian fell silent. He clenched his right fist tightly and no one knew what he was thinking. Chen Tian walked down slowly from midair, and his gaze descended onto Yi Xian. "Do you have any other trump cards?" Yi Xian opened his palm, and another strand of sword energy appeared. Another strand of sword energy. Chen Tian glanced at Yi Xian, and then he suddenly waved his right hand lightly. Something seemed to have been torn open in the distant sky, and it didn't take long for countless strands of black energy to surge out like tide water. Taoist Mountain Ghost and the others hurriedly retreated when they witnessed this scene. Even though the black energy from before was formidable, they were still barely able to resist it. But now the amount of black energy wasn't just countless times greater than before, it was countless times stronger as well. Endless black energy spread out from behind Chen Tian, and this black energy spread out in all directions at an extremely fast speed. Chen Tian looked at Yi Xian and smiled. "In the void behind me, there is a space-devouring beast. This beast lives by devouring the power of the space dimension, and it can use it for its own purposes. Of course, this isn't the main point. The main point is that if you choose to kill me, this beast will devour your entire four-dimensional universe. Make your choice." Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, Taoist Mountain Ghost suddenly spoke in a deep voice. "Young friend, this black energy has appeared in many places in the four-dimensional universe. I can't resist it." Yi Xian glanced around and this time he looked very far away. This black energy had already appeared in many places. Deities Templar Black Yellow Great World, and even the faraway Qingqing. Facing this endless black energy, he saw the despair in many people's eyes. Deities Templars Wuxia, Yuan Shaodao, Northern Regions Jiangjiu, Lian Wanli, Shangguanxian. Everyone could only wait for death. Only the experts here could barely resist it. However, they could only barely resist it. This was because this black gas would devour the entire four-dimensional universe. Yi Xian turned to look at Shao Qi and the other two. Shao Qi shrugged. "I'm not afraid of death. It's just a pity that I can't go to the fifth dimension to take a look." Anlanxiu glanced at Yi Xian, but she didn't say anything. Emosia smiled slightly. "I've tried my best. Actually, I'm also a little regretful. I also want to see what kind of world the fifth dimension is like. Unfortunately, I won't have the chance." Yi Xian shook his head. "We have to live well. Everyone has to live well too. After that, I'll take you to the fifth dimension." As his voice fell, Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. In the depths of the starry sky, he vaguely saw a pair of huge black eyes. After a moment of silence, the sword qi in Yi Xian's hand suddenly soared into the sky. This strand of sword qi directly entered the depths of the starry sky. He chose to kill this space-devouring beast. Ah! In the depths of the starry sky, a mournful scream suddenly rang out. Soon, all the black energy in the surroundings began to slowly disappear. Yi Xian said softly, "Did I save the world?" In some unknown starry sky, the woman in the plain dress slowly closed her eyes. After a moment she said softly, "Back then, I entered the path of destruction by exterminating all living beings. Now you used my sword qi to save all living beings." Saying this, she looked into the depths of the starry sky and said softly, "What a good karma. Brother, every cause has an effect. You are the only karma that I can't cut off." P.S. When I published it today I checked it twice. I hope there are no typos. Now, every time I finish writing I check it more than twice. Chapter 850. Karma. There must be a cause and effect. To the plain-dressed woman, no matter how strong the karma was, it could not touch her. That was because her sword could sever all karma. However, she did not want to sever this karma. She also knew very well that as long as she did not cut off the relationship between her and Yi Xian, she would have a lot of troubles ahead of her. Some troubles could not be solved with a sword. They could even ruin her sword doctrine heart. But she never regretted it. There was only one person who could let her karma touch her. There was only one person who could destroy her sword heart. There was only one person who could make her feel that living was meaningful, invincible. In this life she did not want to be defeated. Who could defeat her? Longevity? In this life she did not want to die. Who could kill her? In the starry sky, after the black gas disappeared, Yi Xian looked at Qin Tian. He knew that things were not over yet. What Qin Tian did just now was actually to force him to hand over the sword energy. And he had to hand over the sword energy. Yi Xian was a secular person and a selfish person. He did not have the thought of saving the world and longevity as his responsibility. He simply did not want anything to happen to his friends. And he had many friends and people he cared about. Temple and Jussier, and those people from Black Yellow Great World, Jiangzhou Mo Yunqi by Zhe Shengguan Siener etc. These people were people he cared about. As Jiang Jiu had said, Yi Xian not only had a sister but he also had many friends and people he cared about. He did not want to be a lonely swordsman. He did not want to be a swordsman who was selfish to his friends. At this moment Yi Xian's face suddenly turned pale and the aura around him started to become chaotic. He could not suppress it anymore. Just now he had been suppressing the energy after devouring the sword energy. But now he could not suppress it anymore. He was about to break through. Yi Xian was about to speak when Shao Qi suddenly said, "You break through first. The three of us will stop him." Yi Xian shook his head. "Danger?" Seven said, "I have no choice. You have to break through. If you do, along with your trump cards you might be able to fight him." Yi Xian thought for a moment, then nodded. He sat down cross-legged and focused on absorbing the energy in his body. Shao Qi and the other two stood in front of Yi Xian. In the distance Qin Tian looked at Shao Qi and the other two. "The three of you are not bad. If you are willing, you can follow me to the multidimensional academy in the fifth dimension to study." Saying this he smiled faintly. "You guys might not know what entering the myriad dimensions academy means." "It means that you guys," Emosia suddenly asked, "do you have any friends?" Qin Tian looked at Emosia. "Naturally." Emosia smiled and said, "Will you betray your friend?" Qin Tian thought about it, then smiled and said, "I won't." Emosia faintly smiled, "We won't either." Qin Tian looked at Emosia. "You will die." Emosia softly said, "A true friend can live and die together." Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian for a long time then nodded, "You are very loyal. However, I want to see if you are really loyal." Saying this he suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared he was already in front of Emosia. Before Emosia could react, Qin Tian's hand was already on his throat. At this moment, a sword stopped behind Qin Tian. The moment Qin Tian made his move, Seven also made his move. However, she was still too slow. This doppelganger was much stronger than the previous one. Qin Tian looked at Emosia in his hand and started to exert force. Soon, Emosia's body became illusory. Qin Tian smiled and said, "You should know that I will really kill you. I'm not joking with you. However, I still want to give you a chance. As long as you nod and are willing to go to the fifth dimension with me, I can let you live." Emosia looked at Qin Tian and smiled, "I want to go to the fifth dimension to take a look. However, I don't want to kneel there." Qin Tian's hand started to exert force and a mysterious force suddenly surged into Emosia's body. Emosia suddenly raised his head and roared. At this moment his pupils actually exploded. Not only that, the bones in his body also started to slowly crack. At this moment, Seven no longer hesitated and directly slashed at Qin Tian. Qin Tian didn't even turn his head and waved his hand. Boom! A powerful force instantly sent Seven flying. At this moment, a long spear suddenly stabbed down from the top of his head. Qin Tian's right foot lightly stomped. Boom! The space above his head suddenly collapsed and the powerful force directly sent Enlancio flying. Qin Tian continued to look at Emosia. "It isn't easy for people to live, especially for geniuses like you. It is even more difficult for you to reach this stage. You have to think carefully. Is it really worth it to sacrifice your life for a so-called brother? Wuxia clenched his fists and his facial features twisted. On his forehead, veins popped out and he looked incomparably malevolent. Bang. At this moment he was enduring an unbearable torture. Qin Tian stared at Wuxia. As long as you say the word, you can live. Not only can you live even better. Wuxia suddenly roared, "Brother Yi, take good care of my clansmen." As his voice faded, his body suddenly started burning. Burning his soul to self-destruct. Qin Tian narrowed his eyes. At this moment, a voice came from the side, "Let him go." Qin Tian turned to look at the nearby Yi Xian. Yi Xian stared deadly at Qin Tian. He opened his palm and the prison pagoda appeared in his hand. "Let him go, this is for you." Qin Tian laughed, "Even if you don't give it to me, I can take it." Yi Xian said, "You should know that it has already recognized me as its master. If my brother dies, I will detonate it. I will do what I say." Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian, but he didn't say anything. At this moment, Wuxia was completely burning. At most a few breaths of time he would completely disappear. Yi Xian suddenly roared. The prison pagoda appeared between his eyebrows. In the next moment the prison pagoda started shaking. Seeing this, Qin Tian squinted his eyes. His right hand lightly exerted strength, and a force shattered the flames around Wuxia. However, he was still a bit too slow. At this moment, Wuxia's body completely disappeared, leaving only his soul. Moreover, this soul was extremely ethereal, as if it could disappear at any moment. Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian. "Give it to me." Yi Xian stared deadly at Qin Tian. With a point of his finger, the prison pagoda flew right in front of Qin Tian. Qin Tian let go. The moment he let go of Wuxia, his pupils suddenly shrank. He saw Yi Xian suddenly roar, "Old dog, my brother isn't someone you can touch." As his voice faded, a sword aura suddenly flew out of his hand. Sword aura again. Yi Xian originally didn't want to use this sword aura because it truly was his last trump card. He wanted to save it for a critical moment, but now, seeing Wuxia's body destroyed, he didn't want to think about anything else. Seeing this, Qin Tian's expression changed greatly. He frantically retreated, but the sword aura was even faster, instantly piercing through his forehead. Qin Tian's body instantly became ethereal. Qin Tian looked at Yi Xian. He was just about to speak when a sword suddenly flew out of Yi Xian's hand. This flying sword sliced through Qin Tian's throat. Qin Tian instantly disappeared. At this moment Yi Xian's mouth spat out a mouthful of essence blood. Just now he was at a critical moment, but seeing Wuxia almost be forced to burn her soul and self-destruct, he had to forcefully stop. Now he was starting to suffer the backlash. Yi Xian didn't care about his body. He looked at Wuxia. Right now, Wuxia's body was extremely ethereal, as if it could disappear at any moment. At this moment Little Soul's voice suddenly rang out, "Young master, I can save him." Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Hurry." As he spoke he quickly took out the soul-suppressing sword. Little Soul directly absorbed Wuxia into the sword. Little Soul said, "His soul is very weak. It will take a period of time to recover." Yi Xian breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He looked up at the horizon. "Brother Mo, don't worry. I will take you to the 5th dimension. Let's go there together." After saying that, he immediately sat down cross-legged. Breakthrough. He had to break through as soon as possible because he knew that things weren't over yet. Everyone present knew that things weren't over yet. Although the 5th dimension barrier had been broken, at the end of their line of sight was pitch black. In that pitch black space, everyone could feel a powerful force. A force from the 5th dimension. Anlanxiao and Shaoqi walked to Yi Xian's side. Shaoqi looked up at the depths of the starry sky and softly said, "Perhaps the 5th dimension barrier isn't a bad thing." The 4th dimension was naturally much weaker than the 5th dimension. Under such circumstances, if the two universes didn't have any restrictions, the 4th dimension would really be slaughtered by others. Just like just now, if it weren't for Yi Xian's sword light, the 4th dimension would probably have been destroyed in a day. But now that the restrictions were gone, the fate of the 4th dimension was in the hands of the experts of the 5th dimension. At this time, not far away, a middle-aged man suddenly said, "I'll try." As he spoke, he suddenly soared into the sky. Obviously, he still wanted to go to the 5th dimension. This was also normal. After all, the restrictions had been broken and the 5th dimension was close at hand. How could he not be tempted? However, before he could approach that area, a white light directly blasted his body. Boom. The middle-aged man's body directly turned to ashes. Seeing this scene, everyone's expression immediately sank. The people of the fifth dimension didn't want the experts of the fourth dimension to go up. Everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's aura was getting stronger and stronger. A breakthrough was imminent. At this time, Lian Qian suddenly appeared beside Yi Xian. She glanced at the people present and then raised her head to look at the depths of the starry sky. She frowned slightly. After a while, Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. She just looked at Yi Xian silently. At this time, Xiao Qi walked to Lian Qian's side and softly said, "What's wrong?" Lian Qian shook her head. "Originally, I hoped that he would become stronger before going to the fifth dimension. Unfortunately, I didn't expect that the people above wouldn't give him any chance." As she spoke, she shook her head again. "He won't survive. It can be said that he is now the public enemy of the fifth dimension. The people of the fourth dimension only know that Xiao Ta can go to the fifth dimension. They don't know the real use of this pagoda. But the people of the fifth dimension know the real use of this pagoda. For this pagoda they will risk their lives." Xiao Qi was silent. At this time, Lian Qian said again, "If I'm not wrong, they might have already made a move on that plain-dressed woman. Because this time, not a single expert from the Myriad Dimensions Academy came. They must be targeting that plain-dressed woman." Chapter 851. Against the plain-dressed woman. Why were the experts of the fifth dimension unable to obtain the World Prison Pagoda? The reason was because of the plain-dressed woman. She was the one who had been obstructing the experts of the fifth dimension. Without her, Yi Xian would not have been able to live until now. It could be said that the plain-dressed woman was their greatest enemy. And they were very clear that this woman was not easy to kill because they had already failed once. On the battlefield, Lian Qian's expression was gloomy the entire time. Xiao Qi and the rest simply did not know the situation of the fifth dimension. The people of that universe could not be compared to the people of the fourth dimension, especially the Myriad Dimensions Academy. In the past, the Myriad Dimensions Academy could be said to be the most powerful force in the entire fifth dimension. Naturally, the members of the Myriad Dimensions Academy were all students and did not participate in worldly affairs. Because of this, the status of the Myriad Dimensions Academy in the fifth dimension was very high. She knew that the plain-dressed woman was very strong, but the Myriad Dimensions Academy was not weak either. Especially Qin Tian and that female teacher. Their strength could only be described as unfathomable. Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian with worry in her eyes. She naturally did not want anything to happen to Yi Xian. Her goal was to find her master, and this World Prison Pagoda was the key to finding her master. And if this World Prison Pagoda fell into Qin Tian's hands, would Qin Tian go and find her master? If it was a long time ago he might have. But now she was very clear that Qin Tian definitely would not, because power was very tempting. Qin Tian was now the master of the Myriad Dimensions Academy, so he would not go and find his master. Moreover, if the World Prison Pagoda fell into Qin Tian's hands, the two sisters would once again be imprisoned in the pagoda. This was because Qin Tian would definitely not give up on their Tao laws. If they gathered their Tao laws, their might would be extremely terrifying. One must know that in the past, when the two sisters joined forces with the World Prison Pagoda, they fought against the three swordsmen. Although they lost, it was not because they and the World Prison Pagoda were weak, but because the three swordsmen were too strong. Therefore, if the World Prison Pagoda fell into Qin Tian's hands, it would be difficult for them to escape their fate. When they had followed the Prophet had never treated them as subordinates, but if they fell into the hands of Qin Tian. Thinking of this, Lian Qian opened her palm and the World Prison Pagoda suddenly appeared in her palm. Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian beside her. "I'll buy you some time. Not much, maybe 2 or 3 months." As her voice fell, Lian Qian suddenly transformed into a beam of white light and shot up into the sky. Very quickly she arrived in front of the black region. She looked at the black region in front of her, then at the World Prison Pagoda in her hands. She slowly closed her eyes. "Haven't you always been curious about what Tao law I am?" Below, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at Lian Qian. The corners of Lian Qian's mouth lifted slightly. "You'll know soon enough." With that, she suddenly opened her eyes. "In the name of the pagoda, seal." The World Prison Pagoda in her hands trembled violently. In the next moment, countless golden runes suddenly flew out of Lian Qian's body. Very quickly, these golden runes were like tiny butterflies that flew towards the black region. Soon these golden runes formed a swastika character. And at this moment, a giant finger suddenly descended from the black region. This giant finger directly bombarded the swastika character. Boom! The swastika character trembled violently, but it did not shatter. On the contrary, the giant finger directly exploded. However, behind this giant finger, a giant black hand suddenly stretched out. Below, Lian Qian slowly closed her eyes. Seal the heavens and earth. As her voice fell, she suddenly opened her eyes. From within her body, a golden pillar of light suddenly shot up into the sky. This golden pillar of light directly entered the swastika character. The swastika character trembled violently and directly imprinted itself into the black region. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue? From this moment onwards, Yi Xian's position as crown prince is removed. Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man dressed in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. And on both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a somewhat timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone looked over and saw a little girl standing at the door. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Her two small hands were tightly gripping the corners of her skirt. Her face was sickly pale and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of timidity in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. This time, when she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you remove his title for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting? Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the great elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. It is unknown whether he is alive or dead. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove his title. This is really unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men drag her away. At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder said coldly, then flogged 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to show off. The guard sneered, Young Master Yi Lang inherits the title of crown prince. What are you yelling about? With that, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp sound of the slap was heard. The right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She just covered her cheek with her hand. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. What's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. I'm Zhang Mu. Greetings, Crown Prince. Yi Lang nodded. You're not bad. After I become the Crown Prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. I'm willing to go through fire and water for the Crown Prince. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand? Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking toward the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. This young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pum. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Oh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian ignored Zhang Mu and walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue? From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be removed, and Yi Lang shall take over. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. What? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you remove him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting?" Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look directly at the great elder. However, she did not leave, and instead mustered up her courage to enter the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan and his life is uncertain. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to remove him from his position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he is removed or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time, the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. "You should be flogged 30 times as a warning." The great elder coldly replied, "Then flog 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang is the heir, and it is the wish of everyone. What are you shouting about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death." Yi Lang nodded. "Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu seemed to see something and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yiling did not stop there and charged towards Zhang Mu once more. At this time Yiling suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Oh! Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yiling's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yiling's side. Seeing Yiling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yiling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage, and in the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Chapter 852. I beg you to be stronger. Hearing the woman's words, the smile on Qin Tian's face suddenly disappeared. The woman was arrogant? Arrogant? Supercilious? Possibly both, but his intuition told him that the woman in front of him was a bit stronger than they had expected. Of course, at this moment he had no way of retreating. Moreover, there was no need for him to do so. All these years, what had Qin Tian not seen before? How could he retreat just because of one sentence from the woman in front of him? Of course, facing the woman in front of him, he was even more cautious. At this time, the woman in the distance suddenly said, "Start your performance?" Qin Tian looked at the woman in the plain dress. The woman in the plain dress had a calm expression. In her limpid eyes, there was not a trace of ripple. This was a special person. Qin Tian chuckled. "To be honest, you surprised many of us because we never thought that a strong person like you would appear in the four-dimensional universe." The woman in the plain dress looked at Qin Tian. "As a person from the five-dimensional universe, do you have a sense of superiority?" Qin Tian laughed. "No, because we never compare ourselves with you four-dimensional people." Speaking up to here, he suddenly paused and then said, "Speaking of which, it seems that we do have a sense of superiority. However, isn't this normal? For example, when you face a race that is more backward than you, don't you also have a sense of superiority?" The woman in the plain dress said, "Superiority comes from inferiority. Finding a sense of superiority from those who are weaker than you is incompetent." Qin Tian looked at the woman in the plain dress. "In front of me, don't you also have a sense of superiority? What, do you also have inferiority and are incompetent?" The corner of the woman's mouth slightly raised. "Superiority? Have you ever seen a person have a sense of superiority when facing an ant?" Hearing this, Qin Tian narrowed his eyes. The woman in the plain dress in front of him actually treated him as an ant. Qin Tian laughed. He laughed somewhat crazily. "In this life, no one has ever said that I am as weak as an ant. You are the first." The plain-dressed woman slowly walked towards Qin Tian. "If you don't start your performance, then you will lose this chance." Qin Tian looked at the plain-dressed woman and said with a smile, "Come, let me see exactly how strong you are." As soon as he finished speaking, his palm suddenly opened, and a thick ancient book suddenly appeared in his hand. Qin Tian looked at the woman in the plain dress and smiled, "Do you dare to enter the book and fight with us?" The woman in the plain dress looked at the ancient book. The title of the book was, Book Realm. The plainly dressed woman nodded, "All right." As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of sword light and entered the book. The Book Realm. Qin Tian smiled faintly and entered the world of books. The woman in the plain dress appeared in a huge study room. As far as the eye could see, it was densely packed with bookshelves with no end in sight. At this moment, Qin Tian appeared not too far away from the woman in the plain dress. He looked at the woman in the plain dress and smiled, book realm with books as the boundary. This was created by teacher many years ago, and it can be used to suppress another's realm through books. Moreover, within this world all divine arts can't be used." As soon as he finished speaking, the books on the surrounding bookshelves suddenly flipped open page by page. Subsequently, countless tiny words flew out from the books, and these words directly arrived above the woman in the plain dress. Subsequently, a mysterious force directly enveloped the woman in the plain dress. Suppress one's realm. However, the woman in the plain dress's expression was extremely calm. Realm? That was a set of rules that she had once set, and she was no longer within the scope of the rules. To put it simply, she had already jumped out of the scope of realm. At this moment, 4 old men suddenly appeared around the woman in the plain dress. The 4 old men were all dressed in white robes, and each of them held a thick black ancient book in their hands. The 4 of them stared at the woman in the plain dress, and they incessantly muttered something. Very soon, the black ancient book in their hands suddenly flipped open, and blood-red words flew out from the book. These words were like 4 threads that converged towards the woman in the plain dress from 4 directions. These words contained an extremely powerful force, and it could be said that if these words appeared in the outside world, they could easily destroy a piece of the starry sky. And at this moment, these words were endless. This time, the Myriad Dimensional Academy was serious. They didn't dare to be careless. After all, they had already failed before. Therefore, they were extremely cautious towards the woman in the plain dress. However, these words stopped half a zhang away from the woman in the plain dress. Seeing this scene, Qin Tian, who was not far away, narrowed his eyes, and the 4 old men's expressions became even more solemn. At this moment, Qin Tian suddenly said, "Kill." As soon as he said that, the space around the woman in the plain dress suddenly split open, and then 4 black chains formed by countless black words tore through the air. At the top of these 4 chains were 4 extremely hideous demon beasts. These demon beasts were shaped like wolves, and they had extremely long fangs. Their eyes were blood red, and they looked like they were about to devour someone. The woman in the plain dress glanced at the 4 demon beasts and shook her head. There was unconcealable disappointment in her eyes. "You're wasting my time." As soon as she finished speaking, she lightly snapped her fingers. A ray of sword light appeared. Chi 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 chi. The 4 demon beasts directly stopped on the spot. Very soon, the 4 demon beasts became illusory and disappeared. At the same time, the eyes of the 4 old men nearby were wide open. There was fear in their eyes, and there was a sword mark on their throats. Instant kill. Not far away, Qin Tian stared at the woman in the plain dress. At this moment, his fists were already clenched tightly. The woman in the plain dress looked around and said softly, "This so-called book realm is barely passable. At least, Master's idea is very interesting. As for power." At this point, she looked at Qin Tian. "You want to use this thing to kill me? May I ask, are you retarded?" Qin Tian suddenly smiled. "Don't worry, there's more." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly formed a seal with both hands, and a moment later, he suddenly roared, "Destroy." Boom. A bookshelf suddenly exploded behind Qin Tian, and then a dark red "Destroy" character floated out. The moment this "Destroy" character appeared, the entire book realm actually trembled slightly. It was too powerful. The woman in the plain dress looked at the "Destroy" character. At this moment, Qin Tian suddenly roared, "Go." However, the "Destroy" character only trembled and did not move. Qin Tian was stunned. What's going on? At this moment, the woman in the plain dress suddenly said, "Come here." The "Destroy" character hesitated for a moment before it directly floated to the woman in the plain dress. It was trembling. Fear. Seeing this scene, Qin Tian's hands began to tremble. The woman in the plain dress glanced at the "Destroy" character in front of her. A character has cultivated a spirit, and it is an extreme destruction spirit. This is rare. I will find a new master for you, how about it? The "Destroy" character trembled slightly. Moved. The woman in the plain dress was expressionless. Not willing? The "Destroy" character suddenly trembled violently. The woman in the plain dress nodded. "It's good that you are willing. Follow him well, and in the future, I will give you a good fortune." After saying that, she directly kept the "Destroy" character. Then she looked at Qin Tian. "Are there any other treasures?" Qin Tian stared at the woman in the plain dress. "What?" The woman in the plain dress said, "You mean this character has a spirit?" Qin Tian said, "Yes." The woman in the plain dress smiled. "Because it is smarter than you." As she said that, she suddenly looked behind Qin Tian to the right. She slightly frowned, and with a point of her finger, a ray of sword light directly slashed at the bookshelf. Boom. A powerful force burst forth from the bookshelf. Soon a golden word, "Break," floated out. The woman in the plain dress looked at the golden "Destroy" character and said, "Come here." The "Destroy" character trembled slightly, but it did not go over. The woman in the plain dress squinted her eyes, and a ray of sword light flew out from her eyes. In the distance, the "Destroy" character directly exploded and turned into ashes. Seeing this scene, Qin Tian, who was not far away, had a face full of shock. "You?" As for the woman in the plain dress, the blood-red "Destroy" character in her hand, it was trembling in fear. The woman in the plain dress looked at Qin Tian, and Qin Tian's body gradually became illusory. Doppelganger. This was also his doppelganger. His main body did not come down, and he did not dare to come down because his main body still needed to guard the Myriad Dimensions Academy. The woman in the plain dress suddenly said, "Originally, the life and death of this four-dimensional universe had nothing to do with me. However, since my brother chose to save this four-dimensional universe, then..." As she said that, she walked in front of Qintian and looked at Qintian. "From now on, this four-dimensional universe is under my protection. Go back and tell the people of the fifth dimension that you can come at me. If you use 2 moves, it will be my loss." After saying that, she disappeared, and the book realm disappeared together with her. In the battlefield, Qintian was silent, and his body became more and more illusory. He knew that they had seriously underestimated the woman's strength. But here came the question. Just how strong was she? Even the book realm left by his teacher could not do anything to this woman. How strong was she? There was no answer. Soon, Qintian completely disappeared. In the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress looked at the thick book realm in her hand. "Find him and follow him. In the future, I will give you a fortune." The book realm slightly trembled, then turned into a ray of black light and disappeared into the horizon. Looking at the book realm at the end of the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress was silent for a moment, then she turned and left. In the starry sky, the woman in the plain dress slowly walked. Her figure became smaller and smaller at the end of the starry sky, looking somewhat lonely. In a certain academy in a pavilion, a middle-aged man suddenly opened his eyes. Qintian. It was not a doppelganger but his main body. Qintian got up and walked to the side. He lowered his head and looked at the pool in front of him. After a moment he smiled. "Do you think I'm scared? Even my teacher didn't dare to call himself invincible in the past. What ability do you have?" As he said that, he slowly closed his eyes. "Don't you want to fight? Then I will have a good fight with you. Pass down the order to arrest Yi Xian." Chapter 853. The Four-Dimensional Universe. After Yi Xian left the dual realm sky, he returned to the northern region. Yi Xian immediately went to the Moke clan. The Moke clan had now moved to Tianjiang City. They had their own territory in Tianjiang City. The Moke clan was developing well and was considered a tyrant in Tianjiang City. Seeing Yi Xian, the great elder of the Moke clan quickly came out and bowed. "King Yi." Yi Xian said softly, "Senior, you don't have to be so polite. Take me to a quiet place." The great elder nodded. "Follow me, King Yi." Soon, the great elder brought Yi Xian to a hall in the Moke clan. There was only Yi Xian and him in the hall. Yi Xian opened his palm and the soul-suppressing sword appeared in his hand. The soul-suppressing sword trembled slightly and Mosia's soul floated out. At this moment, Mosia's soul had condensed a lot and was much stronger than before. Seeing Yi Xian, Mosia smiled. "Did you win?" Yi Xian nodded. "For the time being." Mosia said softly, "For the time being." Yi Xian said, "Brother Mosia, don't worry about this for now. Your priority now is to rebuild your body as soon as possible." Mosia nodded. "All right. Be careful." Yi Xian patted Mosia's shoulder lightly and turned to leave. After Yi Xian left, the great elder said in a deep voice, "It's very serious, right?" Mosia nodded. The great elder hesitated for a moment and said, "You are the hope of our clan." Mosia said softly, "I know. But sometimes there are many things that have to be done." Saying this, he looked at the great elder. "Uncle, I know what you are thinking. But have you ever thought about the reason why our Moke clan could come this far?" The great elder said, "Because of King Yi." Mosia nodded. "The reason our clansmen have a place to live is because of Brother Yi. As for us, we shouldn't only think about our own benefits. Brother Yi falls. When the nest is overturned, how can the eggs remain intact?" The grand elder shook his head. "Uncle, I was being selfish." Mosia nodded slightly and said softly, "This time my physical body being destroyed is not entirely a bad thing." The great elder hurriedly said, "What's wrong?" Mosia slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, a shadow suddenly appeared above his soul. Seeing this scene, the grand elder was stunned for a moment before saying in shock, This is the ancestor." After Yi Xian left the Moke clan, he returned to Tianjiang City. In a large hall, Yi Xian gathered the experts of the Black-Yellow Great World. The Xinyuan clan patriarch, the Black-Yellow master, and the others were all present. Yi Xian looked at the crowd. "I believe everyone has heard about the dual realm sky. That's right, now that the fifth dimension's restriction has been lifted, people from the fourth dimension can go to the fifth dimension, and experts from the fifth dimension should be able to come to the fourth dimension." Hearing this, the people present were a little excited. The fifth dimension. Not only did the experts from the dual realm sky want to go to the fifth dimension, but the experts from the black-yellow great world also wanted to go to the fifth dimension. That was a whole new universe. Yi Xian glanced at the crowd. Everyone, it is best to temporarily give up on the idea of going to the fifth dimension because they are not friendly. The crowd was silent. Yi Xian said again, the fifth dimension is not friendly. At this moment, the black-yellow master suddenly said, King Yi, was the black gas from before caused by the fifth dimension? Yi Xian nodded. Hearing this, the black-yellow master's face darkened. Do they want to destroy our fourth dimension? Yi Xian said in a low voice, they did have this idea before. The black-yellow master looked at Yi Xian. King Yi, did you stop them? Yi Xian nodded. The black-yellow master looked deeply at Yi Xian. King Yi's strength is unfathomable. The crowd also looked at Yi Xian. They had to admit that the current Yi Xian was becoming more and more unfathomable. Yi Xian said, Today I called everyone here to tell you about the current situation between our fourth dimension and the fifth dimension. I believe everyone knows that the strength of our fourth dimension is definitely weaker than that of the fifth dimension. Therefore, now that the fifth dimension's restriction has been lifted, it is not a good thing for us. Also, I hope that everyone can understand one thing. Don't even think about going to the fifth dimension. If you go now, you will be sending yourself to death. Of course, if anyone wants to go, I won't stop you. He knew that going to the fifth dimension was an irresistible temptation for many people. If he forcefully stopped them, some people might think that he was obstructing their future. No one in the hall spoke. Yi Xian continued, Now that the fifth dimension's restriction has been lifted, the experts of the fifth dimension may enter the fourth dimension at any time. Therefore, our current situation is not particularly good. Especially now, the people of the black-yellow great world may be unstable. At this time, we need everyone to work together to stabilize the situation. We can't be the first to panic before others come. The black-yellow master nodded. What King Yi said makes sense. We can't be the first to panic. Yi Xian said, We will be very busy from now on. Everyone please leave. The crowd in the hall bowed slightly to Yi Xian and then left. However, the black-yellow master did not leave. The black-yellow master walked in front of Yi Xian and looked at Yi Xian. If they really want to destroy our fourth dimension, will we be able to resist? Yi Xian was silent. This was because he could not answer this question. Right now, he was only facing the Myriad Dimensions Academy. However, he was very clear that the Myriad Dimensions Academy was not the only one in the fifth dimension. There were definitely countless other forces, and these forces were very likely to become his enemies. Yi Xian said softly, I don't know. However, don't worry. If they only target me, Yi Xian will bear all the consequences. I will not implicate the fourth dimension. The black-yellow master was silent. She could see things further. She knew that there was only one possibility for the fifth dimension to not plunder or conquer the fifth dimension. They had come for the treasure of the fifth dimension. Simply put, the target of the experts of the fifth dimension should be Yi Xian, not the entire fourth dimension. Of course, she did not know that if not for Yi Xian being in the fourth dimension, the fourth dimension would have long ceased to exist. After a while, the black-yellow master left. In the palace, Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Breakthrough. After he had swallowed Qin Tian's sword, he had already absorbed the entire sword's power. He did not know what sword it was, but he had to say that it was really a great supplement. Now he needed some time to comprehend it. What was life-breaking? In the palace, Yi Xian was deep in thought. Outside the palace, in a certain courtyard, there were two women sitting in front of a stone table. They were Lanxiu and Xiaoqi. Beside them, there was a woman leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. She had a blade of grass in her mouth. Lian Wanli. Now the most monstrous geniuses of the northern region's younger generation, other than Wuxia and Yi Xian, were all here. Xiaoqi picked up the teacup on the stone table and took a sip. Then she said, What do you think? And Lanxiu did not speak. Lian Wanli shrugged his shoulders. I can. What do you think? Those fellows from the fifth dimension obviously want little Ye's life. And Lanxiu nodded. Not only do they want to seize the treasure, they want to kill him. Xiaoqi placed down the teacup and said softly, I think that we can't just sit there and wait for death. At the side, Lian Wanli's brows rose up. You want to counterattack? Xiaoqi said indifferently, Why not? And Lanxiu suddenly said, Sure. Xiaoqi glanced in the direction of Yi Xian's room. He has quite a lot of fortuitous encounters and is getting stronger and stronger. If we follow by his side, the gap between us will get bigger and bigger. I don't want to look up to him in the future. As she spoke, she looked at Lien Wanli and Enlancio. Let's go? The corners of Lien Wanli's mouth curled up. That is exactly what I want. Xiao Qi looked at Enlancio. Enlancio said, sure. Xiao Qi said, let's go. Lien Wanli suddenly said, do you want to say goodbye? Xiao Qi said indifferently, there is no need. Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she walked towards the distance. Enlancio glanced in the direction of Yi Xian and then followed. Lien Wanli shrugged. Let's go then. Very quickly, the three girls vanished into the distance. They left in a carefree manner and didn't bid farewell to anyone. On the city wall, Shangguanxian and Jiang Jiu looked at the three girls who vanished into the horizon. Jiang Jiu said softly, I envy them. Shangguanxian nodded. The talents of Xiao Qi and the other two weren't weaker than Yi Xian at all. Before this, they had always been by Yi Xian's side. It could be said that their light was overshadowed by Yi Xian. If one disregarded Yi Xian, one would realize that they were actually very outstanding. Now the three of them decided to go on their own. Obviously, they didn't want to be affected by Yi Xian anymore. Contrast. Simply speaking, the three of them didn't want to be Yi Xian's contrast. At this time Jiang Jiu chuckled. They can leave but we can't and we don't dare to leave. Now the northern region needed her and Shangguanxian very much. Because the entire black-yellow Great World's affairs were handled by her and Shangguanxian, and Yi Xian was completely a hands-off shopkeeper. If they left, Yi Xian would definitely be badly battered. Moreover, the two of them didn't have the strength of Xiao Qi and the other two. If they left the black-yellow Great World, it would be very dangerous, not to mention going to the fifth dimension. At this time, Shangguanxian suddenly said, do you want to go to the fifth dimension to have a look? Jiang Jiu smiled. Of course. The fifth dimension. As she spoke, she looked up at the end of the horizon and said softly, I don't know if I have the chance to go in this life. Shangguanxian was about to speak, but at this moment, the two girls suddenly disappeared. Soon, the two girls appeared in front of a large hall. And in front of the hall stood a man. It was Yi Xian. Jiang Jiu quickly walked in front of Yi Xian and said softly, you broke through? Yi Xian shook his head. This time he wasn't able to break through to the life-breaking realm. Just a little bit more. Jiang Jiu nodded slightly. No rush, take your time. Yi Xian said softly, I'm going out for a while. I'll have to trouble you here. Jiang Jiu looked at Yi Xian. Where are you going? Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. To find help. After saying that, he directly turned into a sword light and disappeared at the end of the horizon. In the same place, Jiang Jiu said softly, say, who do you think he's going to find? P.S. Recently the weather has been getting colder and colder. If you're not careful you'll catch a cold. Brothers, make sure to keep warm. Chapter 854. Yi Xian entered the vast starry sky. He rode on his sword, and the sword light streaked across the starry sky like a shooting star. Yi Xian closed his eyes and sank into deep thought. The removal of the fifth dimension restriction meant that he would now have to face the fifth dimension. Although his strength had greatly increased, he was now facing a peak expert of the fifth dimension. Qin Tian. At this moment he thought of Qin Tian's strength. The other party was only a clone, yet it could crush him, Xiao Qi and the others. What if the main body was here? As he thought of this, Yi Xian slowly clenched his fists. As long as there was life there would be no battle. Fight. Yi Xian opened his eyes and looked at the distant starry sky. He knew that if he wanted peace he could only fight. This was his only choice. During his time in Qingqing he had understood one thing. When facing an enemy, don't think about begging them for pity. This was because the more you did this, the more they would look down on you and bully you. There was only one way to make the other party not dare to bully you. Fight. If your fist was hard enough, the other party would not dare to bully you. At this moment he thought of his fate. Was everything that had happened to him since he arrived in Qingqing his fate? Did he believe in fate? Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Fate. Ordinary people said that one's fate was in their own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. He also said that his fate was in his own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. However, it was often in the hands of fate. For example, if Yi Ling had left. At that time, what could he have done? He could not have done anything. For example, when facing Qin Tian and the space-devouring beast, if not for the 3 rays of sword qi from the plainly dressed woman, what could he have done? What could he have done? Yi Xian faced his heart. The answer was that he could not do anything and could only wait for death. My fate is in my own hands and not in the hands of the heavens. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Now that he thought about it, this sentence was so ironic. How many people in this world could truly control their own fate? Could he do it now? The answer was no. Yi Xian suddenly smiled. Control of one's own fate? To him it was still a joke. Of course, he understood very well that even though he couldn't control his own destiny now, he had to work hard to fight for it and not resign himself to fate. No matter how unfair one's fate was, one must never resign to it. He could not resign himself to fate. When he thought up to here, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. In the next moment, a powerful aura suddenly swept out from his body, and the surrounding space instantly rippled like water. The aura around Yi Xian grew stronger and stronger. About an hour later, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Boom! The space within a radius of several thousand zhang suddenly trembled violently. Yi Xian looked at his right hand. He slowly clenched it, and a powerful force gathered in his hand. Life destruction. He didn't expect that he would reach the fate-breaking state in this place. Life destruction. Yi Xian looked up into the depths of space. What was Fate Breaker? Only now did he understand that the so-called Fate Breaker wasn't about breaking through fate, but about seeing through fate. Perhaps one's birth was not good, but that birth did not mean one's entire life. If one worked hard, one could still change one's fate. When he thought of this, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Interesting realms? He didn't know who had created these realms, but he had to admit that they were all very interesting. Now, he was a little curious about the legendary Dao Destruction realm. Dao Destruction? How was it destroyed? Now, this chapter is not over. Please continue. He became even more curious. A moment later, Yi Xian disappeared. About 2 hours later, Yi Xian arrived in a starry sky. The Nether Palace. Yi Xian arrived before the Nether Palace and looked at the statues inside. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before saying, "Is anyone there?" No one responded. Yi Xian asked again, "Is anyone there?" Still no response. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before activating his bloodline. His bloodline started to boil, but there was still no response. Yi Xian hurriedly suppressed the blood in his body. He didn't dare to release his bloodline because he couldn't control it. Yi Xian glanced at the statues, bowed slightly and left. In front of the palace, Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before saying softly, "I can only rely on myself." With that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the vast horizon. As soon as Yi Xian left, a statue in the palace suddenly shattered. Hee, a voice rang out from within the palace. After leaving the Nether Palace, Yi Xian didn't return to the Dual Realm sky. Instead, he returned to the prison pagoda. Yi Xian arrived at the top of the pagoda. Sword Venerate was still sitting below the sword. Yi Xian glanced at Sword Venerate. Sword Venerate had been sitting before the sword for a very long time. He had already entered a meditative state. Sword Venerate must have comprehended something. As for how much he could comprehend, it would depend on his luck. Yi Xian looked at the three swords. The pinnacle of swordsmanship? If there was a pinnacle of swordsmanship, then these three swords represented the pinnacle of swordsmanship. How far was his swordsmanship from that of the masters of these three swords? There was no answer. Yi Xian shook his head and left. He went to Xiaoling Er's alchemy room. Xiaoling Er was still fiddling with elixirs. Because of Xiaoling Er, many people in the northern region had reached the Earth's celestial stage. It could be said that Xiaoling Er had improved the overall strength of the northern region. Seeing Yi Xian, Xiaoling Er ran up to him. Her little face was still stained with a lot of black dust. Yi Xian gently wiped the dust off Xiaoling Er's face and said with a smile, "Don't tire yourself too much, okay?" Xiaoling Er blinked. "Elixirs. Help you." Yi Xian felt warm in his heart. "I know, but in my heart, you are more important than elixirs, okay?" Xiaoling Er hesitated and said softly, "I." As she spoke, she lowered her head. Yi Xian said with a smile, "What's wrong?" Xiaoling Er looked up at Yi Xian. "I can help you." Yi Xian smiled. "I know. You have helped me a lot." Xiaoling Er wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Yi Xian touched Xiaoling Er's little head gently. "What do you want to say?" Xiaoling Er shook her head. "Nothing." Yi Xian nodded. "Anyway, if there is anything you must tell me, okay?" Xiaoling Er nodded. "Okay." Yi Xian smiled and then left the alchemy room. After Yi Xian left, Xiaoling Er took out the alchemy scripture and flipped to the last page. There were two big words on it, Godly Shumi Pill. After a while, Xiaoling Er turned and walked towards the alchemy furnace. She clenched her fists and her eyes were full of determination. "I must refine it. If I don't succeed, I will die." After Yi Xian left the alchemy room, he came to the entrance of the 9th floor. The door of the 9th floor was different from the other floors. There was a blood-red talisman on the door. Yi Xian glanced at the talisman, then turned and left. He said nothing. This chapter is not finished, please continue. Because he knew that his strength was not equal to the other party, there was no point in saying anything. He had to take responsibility for this matter himself. After leaving the World Prison Pagoda, Yi Xian arrived at the Dual Realm Sky. As soon as he arrived, the space in front of him suddenly split open, followed by a thick book flying out. Yi Xian was stunned. The executing heaven sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He was about to attack, but at this time, the thick black book suddenly circled around him, then slowly floated in front of him. Yi Xian was about to speak, but the thick book directly turned into a black light and disappeared between his eyebrows. Yi Xian was stunned. What the hell is this? At this time, Lian Qian suddenly appeared in front of him, staring fixedly at Yi Xian. This is impossible. Yi Xian was puzzled. Miss Lian Qian, what do you mean? Lian Qian said, see if you can control that ancient book just now. Yi Xian hesitated, then nodded. He sank his consciousness into his body and soon, a black ancient book suddenly appeared in front of him. Seeing this thick ancient book, Lian Qian's expression became even more solemn. Yi Xian was puzzled. Miss Lian Qian, this is? Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. Book realm. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Book realm? Lian Qian nodded. Using books as a boundary. Back then, Master used a book to develop a world. This book is a world of its own. There are many forbidden ancient books, rune incantations and some extremely powerful word spirits. Especially these word spirits, they are condensed from all kinds of forbidden techniques and are extremely powerful. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. Among all the treasures of the Myriad Dimensions Academy, this book can be ranked in the top 3. I don't know why it appeared here and why it directly recognized you as its master. Yi Xian was also a little confused. Why would this thing suddenly appear here? Impossible? Lian Qian looked at the book realm in front of her. This guy is arrogant. It can be said that it only obeys master. Why would it come here and even recognize you as its master? Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Lian Qian suddenly grabbed the book realm. A moment later she was stunned. It's her. Yi Xian was puzzled. Miss Lian Qian? Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian. It's nothing. Since this thing has already recognized you as its master, then make good use of it. This thing is extremely powerful, not any weaker than your executing heaven sword. If used well, it will have a miraculous effect, especially in suppressing one's realm. This thing can suppress one's realm, so when you fight in the future, you can keep your opponent in this book realm and suppress their realm. Suppress one's realm. Yi Xian's expression changed. Miss Lian Qian, can this really be done? Lian Qian nodded. It can. Not only that, if you can control the world spirits in this book realm with their power, you can completely destroy experts of the same level as Chen Tian's clone. Yi Xian asked, what about the main body? Lian Qian rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. If the main body was so easy to kill, then Chen Tian wouldn't have become the Myriad Dimensions Academy's lord. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. Lian Qian said solemnly, however, this thing is extremely powerful. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the ability to subdue those word spirits. Yi Xian asked, how do I subdue them? Lian Qian said, come with me. After saying that, she directly brought Yi Xian into the book realm. As soon as they entered the book realm, Yi Xian looked around curiously. There were too many books around. Lian Qian said, feel those word spirits. Remember, be polite. These word spirits have their own intelligence, so they are very difficult to subdue. You have to be humble, don't lose face, otherwise. At this moment, a crimson, extinguished character suddenly floated in front of Yi Xian. It directly flew to Yi Xian's hand, then lightly rubbed against Yi Xian's hand, extremely docile. Lian Qian was silent. End of this chapter. Chapter 855. Yi Xian was a little confused. He could feel that the word was trying to please him. Here came the question. Why did the book realm appear here? Not only did it appear here, but it also recognized him as its master. He did not think that he was the master of destiny who would allow such a divine object to submit to him. What was going on? Yi Xian looked at Lian Qian. Miss Lian Qian, you should know what happened, right? Lian Qian nodded. It's her. Yi Xian was slightly startled. You mean the plain-dressed woman? Lian Qian nodded. She looked up at the starry sky. If I'm not wrong, Chen Tian went to look for her. That big idiot? Yi Xian felt relieved. Clearly, as Lian Qian said, the Myriad Dimensional Academy went to look for the plain-dressed woman. And the result was obvious. The plain-dressed woman had definitely won. Not only did she win, but she also snatched a treasure for him. Yi Xian's heart warmed. He looked at the end of the starry sky. She had not forgotten about him. Lian Qian suddenly said, "It has recognized you as its master. Moreover, the word spirits have also recognized you as their master. You can use them to fight at any time." Yi Xian looked at the annihilate word in his hand. "How powerful is it?" Lian Qian said, "You'll know once you try it." Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. "All right." After saying that, he opened his palm. The annihilate word directly merged into his palm. The next moment he fiercely pushed his palm forward. Boom. In an instant, the space tens of thousands of zhang in front of him turned into nothingness. Yi Xian was struck dumb at the sight of that. What kind of power was this? Yi Xian was shocked. Even his immeasurable sword wasn't this terrifying. This word actually had such great power. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, "You can try merging this word into your sword." Merging it into the sword. Hearing Lian Qian's words, Yi Xian suddenly became a little excited. The power of this word was so strong. If it was integrated into his sword, wouldn't it be even stronger? Thinking of this, Yi Xian hurriedly activated the destroy word. This word was very cooperative and directly integrated into the executing heaven sword in his hand. Boom. The executing heaven sword trembled violently, and a powerful aura of destruction swept out from the tip of the sword. At the same time, Yi Xian's hand cracked. Yi Xian was shocked and he quickly let go of the executing heaven sword. The executing heaven sword trembled violently, and a powerful force surged out from it. The space around Yi Xian and Lian Qian began to crack bit by bit. Yi Xian looked at his hand with a solemn expression. His own physical body could be said to be extremely terrifying, but he hadn't expected that his hand wouldn't be able to withstand the power of this word. Moreover, he hadn't even activated the executing heaven sword. If he did, then his entire arm would probably explode. Fortunately, it was a celestial sword. Any other sword wouldn't be able to withstand the power of this word. At this moment, Lian Qian spoke solemnly, "This sword of yours is really amazing. Any other sword would probably have been reduced to ashes." Yi Xian nodded, "Indeed." Lian Qian said, "Put it away. This word and the book realm can be considered your trump card. Save it for the critical moment." Yi Xian nodded slightly. He put away the executing heaven sword and the book realm. Now he had another trump card. Lian Qian looked at Yi Xian, "What do you plan to do now?" Yi Xian looked up at the starry sky in the distance. "I'll go explore it." As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light and vanished into the starry sky. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as the crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. "Why?" At this moment, a timid voice suddenly sounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling. She was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is the crown prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan. What are you interrupting for?" Yi Ling was obviously afraid and did not dare to look at the great elder. However, she did not leave. Instead, she mustered her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting with his life on the line for the clan, and it is unknown whether he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Whether he discards his position or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly smiled and said, "He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder said coldly, "Then flog 30 times." Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he is fighting with his life on the line for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to show off had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang will inherit the position of crown prince. What are you shouting for?" As he said this, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Yi Ling's right cheek instantly turned red and swollen. However, she did not cry. She just covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang sized up the guard and asked with a smile, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Your subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You are very good. After I become the crown prince I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. "Your subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the South Mountain. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked up to Yi Ling. Seeing Yi Ling in such a state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides there were the Yi clan elders. What? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian from his position, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, why are you interrupting?" Yi Ling was obviously afraid, not daring to look at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan and we do not know if he is dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. "Discard him or not, it is not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away." At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. She should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now he is risking his life for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you shouting about?" As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry. She only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang sized up the guard and asked with a smile, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the prince I will need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy. Understood?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Zhang Mu suddenly stopped as if he had seen something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you?" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and snarled, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stepped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked up to Yi Ling. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced apart. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Chapter 856. In the dark, Yi Xian looked in front of him. There stood a man. The man wore a feathered robe that seemed to be weaved from feathers. He wore a white square scarf on his head and held a feather fan in his hand. He had a meaningful smile on his face as if everything was under his control. At this moment, a woman slowly walked to the man's back. She wore a dark green dress and her hair reached her waist. Her jade-like arm was wrapped with a golden ribbon, and the end of the ribbon fell to the ground, fluttering gently in the wind. The woman lowered her head and looked down. From her position she could see the dual-realm sky. They failed. The strategist smiled. They underestimated the enemy. This four-dimensional universe isn't as weak as we thought. Or rather, the people at the top aren't weak at all. The woman tilted her head and looked at the strategist. Many people are looking at our Myriad Dimensions Academy as a joke. The strategist said softly, "The one who laughs last is the king, isn't that right?" The woman said in a low voice, "Why did the academy head issue a wanted order and let everyone know about it?" The strategist looked down and said softly, "Because the people below might really be very strong." The woman looked at the strategist. "The academy head wants to kill with a borrowed knife?" The strategist smiled and said, "It would be best if you could kill someone else with a knife. However, I'm guessing that the mansion master doesn't want to kill someone with a knife. Instead, he wants to use someone else to exhaust Yi Xian and the people behind him." The woman frowned. "Are the people below really that strong?" The strategist looked at the woman and smiled. "Lin Lang, Do you remember the motto that the prophet left behind in Myriad Dimensions Academy? Lin Lang said, "Don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate anyone." The strategist nodded. Many people die because they underestimate their enemies. A lion needs to use its full strength to catch a rabbit. Lin Lang looked at the strategist. "I heard that you sent people to find his sister?" The strategist smiled. "Do you think I'm despicable?" Lin Lang was silent. The strategist smiled. "We can't just use brute force and violence to deal with our enemies. We need to find his weakness. Once we find it, we can use our strongest power to attack their weakest point." What's Yi Xian's weakness? It was his sister. Find Yi Ling's weak point and defeat him in one strike. At this point he looked down and said, "There is no such thing as being despicable when dealing with an enemy. There is only winning and losing." Lin Lang said, "I want to see the so-called geniuses of the four-dimensional universe." After saying that, she directly flew down. The strategist chuckled and left. In the dark, Yi Xian did not make a move. Look for Yi Ling? If it was in the past, he would have killed this strategist at all costs. But now he wouldn't, because only he knew how terrifying Yi Ling was. That was an existence that could suppress his bloodline at any time. Of course, no matter how strong she was still his little sister. This was something that no one could change. Yi Xian turned around and left. Very soon he arrived in front of a huge altar. 4 black-robed experts stood on top of the altar. In front of the 4 of them was a blood-red ball. At this moment, the ball was constantly emitting a red aura that slowly spread towards the seal Lien Qian had placed on it. Corrosion. The red aura was corroding Lien Qian's seal. Yi Xian glanced at the 4 of them. In the next moment he disappeared. The instant Yi Xian disappeared, the expressions of the 4 people on the altar changed. They immediately stopped. At this time, a sword light flashed above the altar. Chi 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 chi. 4 bloody heads flew into the air. Yi Xian extended his left hand to the left and then clenched it. With this clench, he grasped the executing heaven sword, which was covered in blood. Yi Xian looked at the blood ball in front of him. With a wave of his right hand, he disappeared along with the blood ball. Just as Yi Xian disappeared, an old man suddenly appeared on the scene. On the left side of the old man's chest, there was a small Wei character. An expert from the Myriad Dimensions Academy. The old man glanced at the 4 corpses on the ground. He looked at the right side of the altar. There was a crystal ball there. With a light hook of his hand, the crystal ball turned into a water screen in front of him. An image appeared on the water screen. In the image, a swordsman flashed past and 4 heads fell to the ground. This swordsman was Yi Xian. The old man pondered for a moment and said, "Inform the others that he's here." "Yes." A voice sounded behind him. The old man glanced around. "You're quite daring." After saying that, he disappeared. In a dark corner, Yi Xian sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. A blood-red ball floated in front of him. At this moment, Lien Qian's voice sounded in his mind. "This thing is called the boundary-breaking pearl. Contains a lot of blood qi and evil qi. The evil qi is very strong. You can absorb it to strengthen your bloodline." "No, you can't absorb it." She suddenly remembered that Yi Xian's bloodline was already terrifying enough. If he absorbed this thing, would Yi Xian be able to suppress it? He definitely wouldn't be able to suppress it. Yi Xian didn't dare to absorb it. Although this thing was good, he couldn't control his bloodline. Lien Qian said, "Use it at a critical moment." Yi Xian smiled bitterly. "I don't want to be at a critical moment." As he said that, he put away the boundary-breaking pearl. Lien Qian said softly, "You have to think of a way. Otherwise the seal will break in 2 months. At that time, the 4-dimensional universe will be in danger. You have to understand that humans are greedy." What is the 4-dimensional universe in the eyes of the 5-dimensional experts? It's a piece of fat meat. The big fish eats the small fish. This is the rule of every world. Right now, the 4-dimensional universe is the small fish. Yi Xian was silent. Lien Qian continued, "Many people won't come to snatch your pagoda because they know their limits. They know that this pagoda is something that only the big shots can fight for. Therefore, their target will be the 4-dimensional universe. Simply put, it's to plunder, enslave." Yi Xian said softly, "I originally thought that the 5-dimensional universe would be different from the 4-dimensional universe." Lien Qian said, "It's the same in every world. Some powerful civilizations are powerful not only because they have great strength, but also because they are crueler than other civilizations and races. Everywhere it's survival of the fittest. The weak will be eliminated." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." As he said that, he looked around. Is this the five-dimensional universe? Lian Qian said, no, this can be said to be the boundary between the four-dimensional universe and the five-dimensional universe. You have to cross this boundary to reach the five-dimensional universe. Why, do you want to go to the five-dimensional universe? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't want to go. I just want to understand it. Lian Qian said, you want to understand Yi Ling? Yi Xian nodded. Lian Qian said in a low voice, she's in the Azura Hell. That place is not something you can go to now. Yi Xian said, even with my current strength I can't? Lian Qian said, you're not weak, but you're not strong enough to walk around the five-dimensional universe. Don't look down on this world even a little bit. There are many people who can kill you. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Lian Qian asked, what are your plans now? Yi Xian said softly, to kill. After saying that, he turned his head and looked into the distance. Someone's coming. In the distance, two men and a woman flew over. Soon the three of them stopped not far in front of Yi Xian. The man in the lead was holding a long sword. He looked down and said softly, it's said that Yi Xian is a genius in swordsmanship. His attainments in swordsmanship are extremely profound. I don't know if it's true or not. Next to the long-sword man, another man in a luxurious robe smiled. How strong can a swordsman from a low-level dimensional world be? The long-sword man shook his head. Ada, don't underestimate anyone. The man called Ada smiled and said, Eternal Wind, I'm not looking down on them. I know that the people of the four-dimensional universe are still pursuing the so-called Tao, and they don't even know what Tao is. As he said that, he looked down at the four-dimensional universe. Their current civilization is too far behind us. Not to mention anything else, just the three of us are enough to sweep the entire four-dimensional universe. Eternal Wind chuckled. Ada, you're still the same. Think about it, if the people down there are so easy to bully, would the Myriad Dimensional Academy's Lord still issue this so-called arrest warrant? The person who kills Yi Xian can not only share the World Prison Pagoda with the Myriad Dimensional Academy, but also enter the Myriad Dimensional Academy's holy land to cultivate. Apart from that, they can also obtain a scroll of martial arts created by the Prophet. If the people down there are so easy to bully, they wouldn't have offered such an attractive condition. As he said that, he turned his head. This Myriad Dimensional Academy is trying to kill us with a borrowed knife. But that's fine too. Now that the restriction has been lifted, the four-dimensional universe is also a piece of fat meat for us. The woman beside him suddenly said, Fat meat? The corner of Eternal Wind's mouth rose. Think about it. With the strength of the three of us, can we find a place in the four-dimensional universe to establish a powerful force? The woman asked, and then? Eternal Wind smiled. What do you think? The woman glanced at Eternal Wind. Plunder. Eternal Wind nodded. Actually, there have been many people who wanted to plunder the four-dimensional universe since a long time ago. Unfortunately, the restriction set by the Prophet is too strong. No one has any way to go down. But now, the Myriad Dimensional Academy has removed the restriction. Moreover, they're allowing others to go down. This is an opportunity for us and we have to grasp it. As for how much we can reap, that will depend on our own luck. Ada laughed. Eternal Wind, your idea is not bad. I heard that there is a black-yellow great world down there. That is Yi Xian's lair. We will choose that place. Ah. Eternal Wind smiled. Let's go. Let's get rich. Get rich, get rich. Ada laughed loudly. The three of them were about to go down when Eternal Wind suddenly turned his head. Not far away, a man was walking over slowly. The man was wearing a mask and his face couldn't be seen. The man walked in front of the three of them and smiled. The three of you want to go to the four-dimensional universe? Eternal Wind glanced at the man. You are? The man smiled. I'm Xian Yi from the Worldwide Academy. Just now, I heard that brother wants to go to the four-dimensional universe to get rich. Coincidentally, I also have the same idea. How about we go together? Chapter 857. The person in front of them was naturally Yi Xian. Worldwide Academy? Chang Feng sized up the man in front of him. Are you from Wiyuan or Literature Academy? Yi Xian smiled. Wiyuan. Chang Feng glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian smiled. It should be your first time going to the four-dimensional universe, right? Chang Feng nodded. Yes. Yi Xian smiled. I've been there once before, so I'm quite familiar with the place. If the three of you are willing, we can go together. Chang Feng looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. At this moment, the woman beside her suddenly sent a voice transmission. There's something strange about this person. Ada also said, be careful. Chang Feng was silent for a moment, and then he looked at Yi Xian and smiled, of course. Then please lead the way, Brother Xian. Yi Xian laughed, the three of you come with me. After saying that, he walked towards the distance. Ada glanced at Yi Xian and sent a voice transmission to Chang Feng, I'm afraid this person doesn't come with good intentions. Chang Feng smiled, we can use him. Ada hesitated and nodded, that's true. Soon the four of them arrived at the four-dimensional universe. In the starry sky, Chang Feng looked at Yi Xian, Brother Xian, do you know that Yi Xian? Yi Xian nodded and smiled, I know about Dao Yi. Chang Feng asked, how strong is this person? Yi Xian hesitated and smiled, he's not bad in the four-dimensional universe, but in the eyes of the three of you, he can't even withstand a single blow. Chang Feng smiled, is that so? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, Brother, you should know that the martial arts civilization of the four-dimensional universe is much weaker than our five-dimensional universe. How strong would a swordsman from such a world be? In my opinion, if the three of you wanted to kill him, it would only take a few seconds. Chang Feng looked at Yi Xian, is Yi Xian really as weak as you say? Yi Xian laughed and said, otherwise, do you all think that he is very strong? Eternal Wind shook his head. If he was really that weak, would your Myriad Dimensional Academy still issue this wanted order? Yi Xian smiled. Because there seems to be some experts from the four-dimensional universe behind him. Eternal Wind stared at Yi Xian, those experts are so strong that your Myriad Dimension Academy can't do anything about them. Yi Xian smiled and said, I don't know about that. I'm just a small student in Wuyuan. That's all. Chang Feng stared at Yi Xian without saying anything. Meanwhile, Ada suddenly said, aren't we going to the Sky-Earth world? At that time, wouldn't we know Yi Xian's true strength? Yi Xian nodded. Right. When we arrive at the Sky-Earth world, we'll be able to fight Yi Xian. Eternal Wind glanced at Yi Xian and said, Brother Xian, why have you come here? Yi Xian laughed and said, I'm here to fish for some benefits. When he spoke up to here, he paused for a moment and said, looks like you're very suspicious of me. Since it's like that, then I won't be joining the three of you. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Eternal Wind looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Right at this moment, Ada suddenly said, Brother Xian, wait. Yi Xian stopped and turned around to look at Ada. Ada laughed and said, Brother Xian, our goal is to get rich. Since we have the same goal, then we can join forces. In any case, our target is Yi Xian. Isn't that right? Eternal Wind laughed and said, Brother Xian, I don't have any other intentions. You know that we have to be cautious when we're outside. Yi Xian nodded lightly, I completely understand. Do the three of you want to kill Yi Xian? Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors above, Yi Xian has no talent and no virtue. From this moment onward, Yi Xian's position as Crown Prince is removed and Yi Lang will succeed him. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. What? At this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a hint of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason? The Great Elder looked coldly at Yi Ling. This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for? Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and didn't dare to look directly at the Great Elder. However, she didn't leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. Once again she bowed to the elders. Dear elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to strip him of his position. This is really unfair. Impudent. The Great Elder suddenly raged. Whether he's stripped or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men drag her away. At this time, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The Great Elder coldly replied, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly 2 Yi clan's guards rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the crown prince's position, and it's everyone's wish. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. However, she didn't cry and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "This subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the crown prince, I'll need 10 personal guards. From now on you'll be my personal guard." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed deeply. "This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the crown prince, and I'm willing to die 1,000 deaths. Yi Lang nodded, "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall, do not hold back. Understood?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the killing intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this time Zhang Mu seemed to have seen something and he suddenly stopped. Within the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. He was dressed in a tight-fitting robe that was tattered and covered in blood. This person was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from the Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a cold smile. Within the ancestral hall, all the elders were frowning. The great elder narrowed his eyes and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak, when Yi Xian suddenly leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt a wave of dizziness and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there and he charged towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped down on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, tears welled up in her eyes. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Qingqing Yi Clan Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue? From now on Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides there were the elders of the Yi clan. What? Right at this moment, a slightly timid voice suddenly resounded within the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The girl called Yi Ling bowed to everyone in the hall as she asked timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is the prince. Why did you cripple him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting for?" Yi Ling was clearly a little fearful. She did not dare to look the great elder in the eye, but she did not leave. Instead, she mustered up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides of the hall and said, "Elders, my brother is currently fighting with the Li family for the mining rights of the mine in Nanshan. He is now fighting for the family, and it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. However, the family has used a groundless excuse to remove his position as the crown prince. This is truly unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he's crippled or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men drag her away. At this time the new prince Yi Lang suddenly laughed. He should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder replied coldly, then flog him 30 times. Very quickly 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years and even now he's fighting for the clan. The clan is unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new prince Yi Lang. He knew that this was his chance to shine. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of prince. What are you yelling about?" As he spoke he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry and only covered her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled, "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "Subordinate Zhang Mu greets the crown prince." Yi Lang nodded, "You're not bad. After I become the prince I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Zhang Mu was overjoyed and quickly bowed deeply. "I'll go through fire and water for the prince and I'll do anything for you." Yi Lang nodded, "Drag him away. This person is causing trouble in the ancestral hall. Don't hold back, understand?" Zhang Mu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment Zhang Mu saw something and suddenly stopped. Inside the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside the hall. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and his robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's mouth curled into a cold smile. In the ancestral hall the elders frowned. The great elder squinted his eyes and his face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Zhang Mu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. "Who gave you the guts to touch my sister?" When Zhang Mu saw Yi Xian his face changed. He quickly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Zhang Mu felt dizzy and he stumbled and fell. Yi Lang did not stop there and rushed towards Zhang Mu again. At this time Yi Lang suddenly roared, "Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you!" Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Zhang Mu's chest. Zhang Mu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly, while Yi Xian lifted his head to look at him, asking savagely, "Your man?" As he spoke, he stomped on Zhang Mu's face. Zhang Mu's face turned into a bloody mess as he screamed, "Prince, save me!" Yi Xian did not care about Zhang Mu as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being sliced by a knife. He clenched his fists and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed. "Brother, it hurts, it hurts." Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant he charged in front of Zhang Mu and kicked Zhang Mu's head. Pum. Chapter 858. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian. "What's your name?" Yi Xian smiled. "Mo Chuyan." This was the name of the Wuyuan student he had killed. The reason he had changed his name was because he wanted to be more cautious. Xuanya. Yi Xian. If he met someone with a meticulous mind he could easily expose himself. Moreover, if he met someone from the Myriad Dimension Academy and there was no Xuanya, it would be a bit embarrassing. Just like what Changfeng had said before, it was always good to be careful when going out. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian. "Did that dead Changfeng call you Brother Xian?" Yi Xian smiled. "Alias." Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian and nodded. "Follow me." With that he turned and left. Yi Xian looked at Li Yunqi. He could feel that this person was a bit on guard against him. It had to be said that these people were very cautious. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and followed. At this moment, Anlanxio and the others had already been called back to the Black-Yellow Great World. Because more and more experts from the fifth dimension had come, they had to go back to guard the Black-Yellow Great World. As for the experts from the Dual Realm Sky, they had also been called back to the Black-Yellow Great World. The current Dual Realm Sky was not a safe place. Grand Elder Chen and the others also knew this, so they chose to go to the Black-Yellow Great World. Unity. Now everyone knew that the people of the fourth dimension had to be united. Otherwise, facing the people of the fifth dimension, everyone could only wait for death. On the way, Li Yunqi suddenly asked, Where did Brother Mo come from? Yi Xian smiled. If Brother Li doesn't believe me, I will leave. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian also did not say anything. A moment later, Li Yunqi brought Yi Xian to a starry sky. Just as they entered, several divine senses swept over. These divine senses directly fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked into the distance and clenched his fists. Boom! A powerful force surged out of his body, and those divine senses were directly shattered. Boom! A voice sounded from afar. Then a man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Yi Xian. The man wore a black robe with a golden dragon embroidered on it. The man looked at Yi Xian. Who are you? His tone was overbearing. Yi Xian said, Mo Qiuyan. The man looked at Li Yunqi and Li Yunqi said, I just got to know him. He's also here to reap some benefits. The man was expressionless. Is it useful? Yi Xian smiled and said, Won't you know once you try? The man looked at Yi Xian. In the next moment, a powerful dragon might swept towards Yi Xian. Dragon might? What he was least afraid of in this life was the dragon's might. After all, there was once an ancient golden dragon that had fused with his soul. Yi Xian did not move at all, allowing the dragon's might to strike him. Boom! The space around Yi Xian trembled violently and shattered, but Yi Xian was completely fine. Seeing this scene, the man narrowed his eyes. A hint of surprise flashed in Li Yunqi's eyes. The man looked at Yi Xian. You've absorbed my dragon's might. Yi Xian smiled and said, Can't I? The man was about to attack again when Li Yunqi suddenly said, Jun Wuyin, don't forget that we're here. The real purpose of this trip. The man named Jun Wuyin hesitated for a moment, then gave up on attacking. He glanced at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Li Yunqi said, Where are they? Jun Wuyin opened his palm, and a golden jade seal appeared in his hand. He chanted a few words and soon, the space not far away from the three of them suddenly cracked. Jun Wuyin kept the jade seal. Let's go. After saying that, he walked into the cracked space. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian. Let's go. After saying that, he also followed. Yi Xian glanced around and then followed in. After entering, the scene changed and the three of them came to an unknown hall. In front of the hall, Yi Xian found that there were two women and a man. The man was about 20 years old, with long hair, and he carried a zither on his back. In his hand, he was holding an emerald green flute. Not far from the man sat a woman. The woman was lying on a stone block with her legs crossed, and there was a black iron chain wrapped around her arm. Opposite her, a woman in a long dress leaned against a long pillar with her arms crossed. She seemed to be resting. Seeing that Yi Xian and the other two had come, the man with the zither looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Li Yunqi looked at everyone. Everyone, our goal this time is to kill Yi Xian. You may not know much about Yi Xian. This person is young, but his swordsmanship has reached the breaking realm of this world. In addition, his realm has also reached the life-breaking realm of this world. He also has two extremely powerful swords in his hands. One is called the Executing Heaven Sword. This sword is extremely sharp and is known as the sharpest sword in the four-dimensional universe. If you meet this person, you must not fight this sword head-on. At this time, the woman sitting on the stone block not far away suddenly said, Is he that strong? Li Yunqi nodded. I have already checked. Even in the five-dimensional universe, this sword is a divine weapon. You'd better not underestimate the power of this sword. Otherwise you may pay with your lives. At this time, the man with the zither suddenly asked, What about the soul-suppressing sword? Li Yunqi said, This thing is very effective against the soul. When you fight with him, you must not let your body be destroyed. Otherwise this sword can easily destroy your soul. At this point he paused and then said, However, the real strength of this Yi Xian is not these two swords but his bloodline. This person's bloodline is extremely strange. Once he activates it, he will be like a madman and his battle strength will soar to an unreasonable level. Bloodline? At this time, the woman leaning against the pillar suddenly opened her eyes. What bloodline? Li Yunqi smiled. Qian Mo, I almost forgot that you also have a special bloodline. The woman called Qian Mo looked at Li Yunqi and asked, What bloodline does he have? Li Yunqi shook his head. I don't know. I only know that his bloodline is extremely terrifying. Once it is activated, his battle strength will soar. Therefore, if we attack, it's best to kill him in one blow and not give him any chance to activate his bloodline. At this point he paused and then said, According to my investigation, there are a few stronger people in the black-yellow great world. These people are Yi Xian's friends and their battle strength is not low. In addition, the powerhouses of the dual realm sky have also come to the black-yellow great world. Therefore we can't attack the black-yellow great world by force. We can only use a trick to lure Yi Xian out. Jun Wuyin suddenly asked, how do we lure him out? Li Yunqi smiled. It's very simple. Use his younger sister. Younger sister? Not far away, the woman sitting on the stone pillar suddenly sat up and looked at Li Yunqi. He has a younger sister? Li Yunqi nodded. This person attaches great importance to his younger sister. However, not long ago his younger sister suddenly disappeared, and we still don't know where she is. We can make use of this to lure him here and then kill him in one strike. Jun Wuyin said in a low voice, don't forget that he still has the prison pagoda. The prison pagoda. Li Yunqi nodded. Yes. Therefore if we make a move we must not hold back. We must not hold back at all. After saying that, he looked at the crowd. Everyone, this person was able to make the Worldwide Academy return empty-handed several times. He is not an ordinary person. Don't underestimate him just because he is from the four-dimensional universe. Otherwise we will pay a painful price. Jun Wuyin suddenly said, Brother Li, I know that Yi Xian is not ordinary, but to be honest, we don't need to take him too seriously. The martial arts civilization of the four-dimensional universe is like this. No matter how strong he is, how strong can he be? The woman sitting on the stone pillar also said, it's right to be cautious. However, as Wuyin said, we don't need to take this person too seriously. The man carrying the guqin suddenly said softly, no matter what, don't underestimate this person. As Brother Li said, it's fine if we don't make a move. Once we make a move, it's best to kill him in one blow. Moreover, we must be fast. Soon more and more people will come down. At that time, others may beat us to it. Li Yunqi nodded. Yes, I have received news that more and more people are coming to the four-dimensional universe, especially some big sects and families. They are preparing to send their disciples and people down to train. On the side, Jun Wuyin said with a smile, it seems that the five-dimensional universe wants to use the four-dimensional universe as a training ground. However, isn't the four-dimensional universe an excellent training ground for them? The woman sitting on the stone pillar said with a smile, yes, it's the same for us. Jun Wuyin said with a smile, yes, this Yi Xian is our first prey. As he said that, he looked at Li Yunqi. Brother Li, who do you think is more suitable to lure him? Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian, who had been silent, and said with a smile, how about we let Brother Mo do this? Yi Xian was silent. Li Yunqi said with a smile, Brother Mo only needs to lure him here and leave the rest to us. After this is done, the soul-suppressing sword on Yi Xian will be given to Brother Mo. How about it? Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I want the executing heaven sword. Li Yunqi laughed. Sure. Anyway, we are not swordsmen. After this is done we will give you the sword. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, what should I do? Li Yunqi smiled slightly. You go and report that you have Yi Ling's whereabouts. Yi Xian will definitely follow you. As long as he comes here, leave the rest to us. Yi Xian nodded. Okay. As he said that, he turned around and left. At this moment, Jun Wuyin, who was not far away, suddenly said, wait. Yi Xian stopped and looked at Jun Wuyin. Jun Wuyin said in a deep voice, you won't betray us, right? Yi Xian spread out his hands. Your Excellency, do you think I will benefit from betraying you? Moreover, I am a person from the fifth dimension. How can I team up with a fourth dimension ant? Jun Wuyin glanced at Yi Xian and nodded slightly. Happy working with you. Yi Xian nodded. Happy working with you all. Li Yunqi nodded slightly. Be careful, Brother Mo. Yi Xian is very cunning. You must be careful. Yi Xian nodded. I will be very careful. Chapter 859. When he saw Yi Xian leave, Jun Wuyin suddenly said, Brother Li, can he be trusted? Li Yunqi smiled and said, he has no reason to side with Yi Xian. After all, he's from the fifth dimension. If he sides with Yi Xian, then wouldn't he become the public enemy of the fifth dimension? Moreover, he's very weak. He knows very well that even if he sides with Yi Xian might not want him. So, he can only choose to trust us. The woman on the nearby stone block suddenly said, are we really going to give him that sword? Li Yunqi roared with laughter. Miss Hubin, what do you think? The woman called Hubin gave Li Yunqi a thumbs up. You're really cunning. Li Yunqi shook his head. He's greedy. Jun Wuyin nodded. Don't work together with someone who's too much stronger than you. Everyone fell silent when they heard this. Any kind of cooperation was actually established on the basis that everyone's strength was equal. If one side was too strong and the other side was too weak, then such cooperation was bound to have a bad ending for the weaker side. Li Yunqi opened his palm, and a palm-sized stone plate appeared in his hand. He silently recited a chant, and in next to no time strands of white light suddenly flew out from the stone plate. In the end, these strands of white light completely entered the space around them. The formation. Li Yunqi said, I've already sealed the space here. After Yi Xian enters, the space here will be reinforced. He won't be able to easily break through the space here and escape. At that time, please don't hold back and strive to kill him with a single strike. Jun Wuyan nodded as well. Chen Mo, Hubin, and brother Gu Qing. The three of you are dragons and phoenixes amongst men, and your strengths are extremely formidable. However, when you face Yi Xian later, please don't hold back and strive to not make any mistakes. The man with the zither on his back, Gu Qing, nodded slightly. Understood. Chen Mo, who was leaning against the pillar, nodded slightly as well. All right. Hubin smiled and said, Don't worry. Yi Xian's head is too valuable. I don't want to lose it because I underestimated him. Li Yunqi nodded slightly. That's good. As he spoke, he looked into the distance. I hope nothing unexpected happens. After Yi Xian left that space, he did not return to the black-yellow great world. Instead, he went to the dual realm sky. There were not many people left in the dual realm sky. To be more precise, there were no experts with a thought universe. Most of the experts in the dual realm sky had gone to the northern region of the black-yellow great world. Those who had appeared in the dual realm sky were basically all experts from the fifth dimension. Yi Xian was guarding the seal. Not long after, two men suddenly flew down from the seal. Both men were dressed in black robes and held long spears in their hands. After the two of them came down, they looked around and were about to leave when Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of them. When they saw Yi Xian, the two of them immediately became vigilant. Yi Xian looked at the spear-wielding man. Are the two of you here to kill Yi Xian? The spear-wielding man stared at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian said, I am Mo Chuyin, also from the fifth dimension. Fifth dimension. The spear-wielding man sized up Yi Xian. What's the matter? Yi Xian smiled. It's nothing. After saying this, he turned around and left. At this time, the spear-wielding man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, staring at Yi Xian. What do you mean? Yi Xian was silent. The spear-wielding man was about to speak, but Yi Xian sighed. You're too late. The spear-wielding man narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Yi Xian said, that fifth dimension treasure has already fallen into someone else's hands. The spear-wielding man frowned. Yi Xian has already been killed? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. This chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Yi Xian has already been killed. You're too late. The spear-wielding man said in a deep voice. Who killed him? Yi Xian said, Li Yunqi, Jun Wuyan, and the others. Li Yunqi. The spear-wielding man frowned. Modu, Qing Nation. Yi Xian nodded. There are a total of 5 of them, and the 5 of them have already joined forces to kill Yi Xian. Yi Xian's treasure has already fallen into their hands. Hearing this, the spear-wielding man was silent. Yi Xian suddenly asked, Do you want to fight? The spear-wielding man looked at Yi Xian. What do you mean? Yi Xian said, Although they have already killed Yi Xian, they have yet to leave. Instead, they are hiding somewhere. Do you want to fight? The spear-wielding man shook his head. If there were 5 of them, we wouldn't be able to defeat them. Yi Xian said, Divide them. The spear-wielding man looked at Yi Xian. Divide them? Yi Xian nodded. As far as I know, they are currently unevenly dividing the spoils and there are already conflicts. Therefore they haven't left. This is our chance. The spear-wielding man suddenly asked, Why do you know so much? Yi Xian smiled, Because I was in cahoots with them. However, after killing Yi Xian, they want to get rid of me. The spear-wielding man stared at Yi Xian and asked, Why? Yi Xian shrugged, Because I am the weakest. The spear-wielding man was silent. Yi Xian said, This is an opportunity because they may be leaving the 4th dimension soon. Once they leave the 4th dimension, it will be difficult to obtain the 5th dimension treasure. The spear-wielding man looked at the man beside him and the man looked at Yi Xian. Our goal is not that treasure. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. With that he turned and left. His speed was very fast and in the blink of an eye he had already disappeared into the horizon. The spear-wielding man said in a deep voice, Brother, what do you think? The spear-wielding man looked at Yi Xian in the distance. Follow him, don't let him find you. With that, the two disappeared from the spot. In the distance Yi Xian flew in the air. Soon he arrived at the space where Li Yunqi and the others were. As soon as he appeared, Li Yunqi and the others who were hiding in the dark suddenly became alert. There was no one behind Yi Xian. Seeing this, Li Yunqi frowned and directly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He is not coming? Yi Xian looked a little flustered and his tone was also a little shaky. He is coming. I will leave the rest to you. With that he turned and ran. He was very fast and in the blink of an eye he disappeared into the distance. Seeing Yi Xian escape, Li Yunqi frowned slightly. Coward. With that he glanced around but there was no trace of Yi Xian. Li Yunqi said coldly, Yi Xian, I know that you are very good at concealment. If you want to know the whereabouts of your sister, then come out. At this time the space in front of Li Yunqi suddenly cracked, and then a man walked out. The person who came was Yi Xian, but at this moment he was not wearing a mask but his real body. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian with a trace of fear in his eyes. You want to know the whereabouts of your sister? Yi Xian nodded. Li Yunqi said, hand over the divine item and I will tell you where your sister is. With that he slowly clenched his right hand. He was ready to attack. Because he knew that Yi Xian would definitely not hand over the divine item. However, in the distance Yi Xian suddenly flicked his finger, and a Xiaota directly landed in front of him. Seeing this scene, Li Yunqi, who was ready to attack, was stunned. Jun Wuyin and the others in the dark were also stunned. He handed it over just like that? Are you kidding me? Yi, this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page. Xian suddenly said, where is she? Li Yunqi's mouth twitched. The development of this matter was a little different from what he had expected. Without thinking too much, Li Yunqi suddenly said angrily, attack. However, there was no movement around. Seeing this, Li Yunqi's face darkened. At this moment he suddenly understood. Now that the tower was with him, what was everyone's goal? It was for the tower not to kill Yi Xian. Since the tower was already with him, why would Jun Wuyin and the others in the dark attack Yi Xian? Li Yunqi knew that now, everyone was targeting him, not Yi Xian. He had to divert the conflict. Li Yunqi looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak, but at this time, Yi Xian suddenly said in horror, you have an ambush. After saying that, he turned around and ran at an extremely fast speed, disappearing at the end of the starry sky in the blink of an eye. Li Yunqi was stunned. He ran away just like that? What was going on? As soon as Yi Xian disappeared, Jun Wuyin and the others appeared in front of Li Yunqi. Mo Chuyin, who had escaped earlier, also appeared. Jun Wuyin looked at Li Yunqi and Li Yunqi said in a deep voice, everyone, this matter is quite strange. At this time Mo Chuyin suddenly said, this is the fifth dimensional treasure. According to rumors, this thing can open the all-creation book house and obtain the prophet treasure. Hearing Mo Chuyin's words, Li Yunqi suddenly looked at him and said, what do you mean? Mo Chuyin said in a deep voice, Brother Li, this treasure does not belong to you alone. It belongs to everyone. Don't tell me you want to keep it for yourself? Li Yunqi said angrily, you dare to sow discord. Mo Chuyin seemed to be somewhat afraid and immediately retreated several zhang, not daring to say anything. Li Yunqi looked at the world prison pagoda in his hand. At this moment he had to admit that he felt like he was dreaming. This pagoda was a little unreal. Divide? This thought flashed in Li Yunqi's mind, but it was just a flash. There was only one pagoda. How could he divide it? He could not divide it at all. Thinking of this, Li Yunqi looked at Jun Wuyin and the others and said with a smile, everyone, I Li Yunqi am not a selfish person. Since I have obtained the pagoda, I should share it with everyone. Therefore I have decided. After saying this, he suddenly looked behind Jun Wuyin and the others. Yi Xian. Hearing Li Yunqi's words, Jun Wuyin subconsciously turned around. However, there was nothing behind him. Seeing this, Jun Wuyin's expression changed greatly. He immediately turned around, but at this moment, Li Yunqi had already disappeared into the horizon. Although Jun Wuyin fell for it, Gu Qing, who was carrying a zither on his back, did not fall for it. The instant Li Yunqi escaped, he immediately chased after him. However, this Li Yunqi's speed slightly exceeded his expectations. In the blink of an eye, Li Yunqi disappeared from this space, and Jun Wuyin and the others frantically chased after him. When Li Yunqi left this space, he encountered two men holding long spears. Seeing Li Yunqi, the spear-wielding man said ferociously, that pagoda is really in your hands. After saying this, he was about to attack, but he was stopped by the man beside him. Because of this, Li Yunqi directly disappeared into the horizon. At the end of the horizon, Li Yunqi directly crushed a black stone. In the next moment, the space above his head directly trembled. Behind him, Jun Wuyin suddenly said, "He is calling the experts of Demonic City. Everyone, let's call together." Soon, the starry sky in the field began to tremble. Everyone was calling. P.S. Recently, before updating, I will check it several times. I dare not guarantee that there are no typos, but I will try to make sure there are no typos. If there are any mistakes, please correct me. End of this chapter. Chapter 860. In the dark, Yi Xian quietly looked at the starry sky in the distance. There, one person was escaping and several people were chasing. In fact, with his strength he could completely kill Li Yunqi. In fact, he could kill Li Yunqi, Jun Wuyin and everyone else. If he fought them head-on, he was not sure that he could defeat Li Yunqi and the others. After all, these 5 people were not weak. It would be very difficult for him to fight 1 against 5. However, he had forgotten that he had the immeasurable sword. If he carried out an assassination, these people would not be able to stop him. However, this time he did not directly kill them. This was because he knew that these people did not have simple backgrounds. If he killed the young ones, the old ones would come. It could be said that there was no end to them. Killing a few people was not meaningful at all. After all, he was not alone. He had many things to consider, such as the black-yellow great world, or the entire 4-dimensional universe. Now, he was leading the people of the 4-dimensional universe to fight against the people of the 5-dimensional universe. In this situation, he could not rely on killing alone. He had to use some intelligence. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian disappeared. At the end of the distant starry sky, Li Yunqi was frantically escaping. The current him was a little crazy. He had obtained the treasure of the 5th dimension. There was a voice in his heart telling him that he had to give up this thing because it would bring him a disaster. However, this inner voice was quickly drowned out by his desire and ambition. The treasure of the 5th dimension. The treasure of the prophet. This tower could not only change his fate, but it could also change the fate of Demonic City. He, Li Yunqi, could use this treasure to become the most powerful person in Demonic City in tens of thousands of years and lead Demonic City to the peak of the 5th dimension. It was worth fighting for. Li Yunqi raised his head and looked at the end of the sky. At most a quarter of an hour, the experts of Demonic City would arrive. He only needed to hold on for a quarter of an hour. A quarter of an hour. Li Yunqi took a deep breath and began to accelerate crazily. At this moment, his speed was raised to the limit. Behind him, Jun Wuyin and the others were also chasing crazily. They knew that this was their chance. Once Li Yunqi brought the treasure back to the 5th dimension, it would be difficult for them to get it again. Thinking of this, Jun Wuyin and the others also accelerated crazily. Soon, Li Yunqi was getting closer and closer to the seal. At this moment, he clenched his fists tightly and his blood was boiling. This was because he had already received news from the experts of Shanghai. The experts of Shanghai had already come out to pick him up. Obviously, Shanghai also approved of his actions this time. Once they obtained this 5th-dimensional treasure, the fate of Demonic City would change. Of course, the reason why Shanghai dared to do this was because Shanghai itself was not weak. Very soon, Li Yunqi arrived at the seal of the dual realm sky. He raised his speed to the maximum. It was right in front of him. Because the powerhouses of Modu City were already behind this seal. As long as he could pass through this seal, he would be able to meet up with the powerhouses of Modu City. Just as Li Yunqi was about to enter the sealed area, a long spear suddenly pierced through the air. Like a bolt of lightning, the spear arrived in front of Li Yunqi in an instant. Li Yunqi was shocked. If he made a move, he would have to stop. As long as he stopped, Jun Wuyin and the others behind him would immediately catch up. And now he had no choice but to stop. Because the spear's speed was too fast. Just as Li Yunqi was about to make a move, a powerful force suddenly attacked from the side. This force was even faster and directly hit the long spear. Boom. The long spear was instantly sent flying. Li Yunqi was slightly taken aback. Someone was helping him? Without thinking too much, Li Yunqi directly entered the sealed area and then disappeared into the starry sky. Behind him, Jun Wuyin and the others did not give up and madly chased after him. Very soon, Jun Wuyin and the others all disappeared into the starry sky of the 4-dimensional universe. Below, the 2 men with long spears turned their heads and glanced to the right. They were the ones who had made a move just now. They also wanted to stop Li Yunqi, but they had been secretly stopped by someone. Who was it? Neither of them knew. Because the person who had made a move did not appear. At this moment, the man with long spears in the lead suddenly said, "Brother, what should we do now?" The man next to him raised his head and looked at the seal. "Let's go." After saying that, the two of them directly disappeared. On the right, Yishen walked out. It was him who had made a move just now. Yishen took a look at the sealed land and then disappeared from where he was. After the seal, as soon as Li Yunqi rushed out, an old man in a black robe suddenly appeared in front of him. The old man in the black robe grabbed Li Yunqi and said in a trembling voice, "How is it?" Li Yunqi immediately took out the world prison pagoda and then handed it to the old man in the black robe. "Elder." It was not that he had not thought of embezzling it, but he was very clear that with his strength, it was impossible for him to embezzle such a treasure. If he embezzled it, it would be a dead end. The old man in the black robe glanced at the world prison pagoda in his hand and said with some excitement, "It's the world prison pagoda." As he said that, he looked at Li Yunqi. "Well done." At this moment, Jun Wuyin and the others behind him had also caught up. Seeing the old man in the black robe, the faces of Jun Wuyin and the others immediately darkened. An expert from Shanghai. An expert of this level was not someone they could fight at all. The old man in the black robe glanced at Jun Wuyin and the others and said with a smile, "Everyone, this item is now in the custody of the old man. I don't need you to escort it." After saying that, he looked at Li Yunqi. "Let's go." Just at this moment, a few powerful auras suddenly assaulted them from afar. The old man's face instantly darkened when he saw this scene. In next to no time, a middle-aged man appeared in front of the old man in the black robe. When he saw this person, Jun Wuyin hurriedly walked over to the middle-aged man and bowed respectfully, "Uncle Wang." The person who had come was Jun Wuxian of the Qin Kingdom, the Qin Kingdom's prince. Beside the middle-aged man was a woman in a white dress, a veil over her face and a zither on her back. At the side, Gu Qing walked over to the woman and bowed respectfully, "Martial Aunt." The Heavenly Sound Palace's Lin Miaoyin. Besides these two people, there were two other old men. They were the Qian clan's Grand Elder Wan Yunzhong and the He clan's Grand Elder He Wanlian. The old man in the black robe suddenly laughed. "What? Are you going to rob me?" "Rob me?" At the side, Jun Wuyin suddenly laughed coldly. "Shanghai really doesn't even care about face." The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. "Kid, didn't the adults in your clan teach you to respect your elders?" Jun Wuxian suddenly said, "What's going on?" Jun Wuyin said in a deep voice, "Uncle Wang, it's like this. The five of us agreed to deal with Yi Xian together. We also agreed that if we obtained the fifth-dimensional treasure, we would all share it. However, after we obtained the fifth-dimensional treasure, Li Yunqi wanted to keep it for himself." "Keep it for himself?" Hearing this, Jun Wuxian and the others looked at the old man in the black robe with unfriendly expressions. Li Yunqi suddenly said, "Jun Wuyin, let me ask you, did you help to obtain this treasure?" Jun Wuyin asked in reply, "Then did you help?" Hearing this, Li Yunqi was also stunned. He really didn't help. He also didn't expect that Yi Xian would hand it over just like that. Jun Wuyin suddenly laughed coldly. "If it wasn't for us, would Yi Xian be afraid of you? Would he hand over that divine object so easily to you? Li Yunqi, this thing belongs to everyone, not just you. You want to keep it for yourself? In your dreams." Li Yunqi was about to speak when the old man in the black robe beside him suddenly laughed. "Everyone, let's not talk about reason. All the treasures in the world belong to those with power, right?" Jun Wuxian chuckled. "Why, Li Guangxing, do you think you're stronger than all of us?" Li Guangxing laughed. "I dare not. Who doesn't know that the king of the Qin kingdom has 2 purple runes?" But at this point he suddenly opened his palm. In his hand there was a purple rune. In the next moment, the space around him and Li Yunqi began to directly become illusory. Space rune. Jun Wuxian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Want to leave? You're thinking too much." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly rushed out. Boom. A powerful force blasted the space where Li Yunqi and Li Guangxing were, and the entire space trembled. However, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi who were in the space became more and more illusory. Obviously they were about to disappear completely. Suddenly, Lin Miaoyin from the Heavenly Sound Palace suddenly tossed out a purple rune. The rune appeared directly above Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi. Li Guangxing's expression changed drastically when he saw the purple rune. Space Cage Rune. As soon as he finished speaking, the space around him began to shrink layer by layer. But right at this moment, a mysterious force suddenly appeared in this space. In the blink of an eye, Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi disappeared. Everyone was stunned. Lin Miaoyin suddenly looked to the right with a cold gaze. "Who's there?" As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her right hand, and the space that was 300 m away instantly exploded. However, there was no one there. Lin Miaoying frowned slightly when she saw this. Jun Wuxian also glanced coldly at the space. He had sensed that someone had made a move just now, but the person's aura had only flashed for a moment and he couldn't track it. Everyone's expressions were slightly unsightly. The pagoda of prison had fallen into the hands of the capital. Meanwhile, the He clan's grand elder spoke abruptly, "Everyone, that treasure should have been shared by all of us." However, the capital went back on their word and intended to take it for themselves. "We can't let this matter rest just like that." Jun Wuxian suddenly said, "Let's go to the capital." All of them gazed at Jun Wuxian, and the latter spoke softly, "Not many people are aware of this now. However, they'll be aware that the treasure has fallen into the capital's hands in 2 hours at most. At that time, it would be extremely difficult for us to obtain it again. We still have a chance if we go now." The He clan's grand elder spoke in a low voice, "But that means that we have to fight them head-on." Jun Wuxian spoke indifferently, "What else can we do? Should we just suffer for nothing?" The He clan's grand elder fell silent for a short moment before he spoke fiercely, "We can't afford to suffer such a loss. Let's go to the capital. If they don't hand it over today, then we'll flatten the capital." It didn't take long for all of them to leave. Their destination was the capital. The capital. The space above the capital suddenly split open. Then Li Guangxing and Li Yunqi walked out. After they came out, Li Guangxing suddenly asked, "That Yi Xian handed it over so easily?" Li Guangxing nodded, "Yes." Li Guangxing was silent for a moment before he sneered, "It seems that this Yi Xian is also a coward. Not only is he a coward, but he's also an idiot. He actually handed over such a divine item just like that. He's really stupid beyond measure." As he spoke, he looked at Li Yunqi, "Go and inform the Myriad Dimension Academy. Tell them that we've already obtained this item and ask them to send someone to retrieve it." Li Yunqi was stunned. "Uncle, you're going to hand it over?" Li Guangxing nodded, "This item isn't something that our capital can possess. We can only hand it over. Of course we can't hand it over for nothing. We have to ask the Worldwide Academy for those benefits. Not only that." As he spoke, his eyes narrowed, "This time, we have to borrow the blade of the Worldwide Academy to kill some of our opponents." As he spoke, a smile appeared on his face. As if he had thought of something, he looked at the World Prison Pagoda in his hand. "This Yi Xian isn't just an ordinary idiot. He actually doesn't know how to use such a treasure." Idiot. Chapter 861. Not far away from Li Yunqi and Li Guangxing, Yi Xian stood there quietly. He was in an empty space, so the two of them couldn't find him at all. When he heard Li Guangxing's words, Yi Xian didn't feel happy, nor did he gloat. On the contrary, Li Guangxing gave him a reminder. People often thought that they were smart, thinking that everything was under their control. They didn't know that they were in the hands of others. Don't think too highly of yourself and don't think too highly of others. Yi Xian glanced at Li Guangxing, who was not far away, and then quietly retreated. At this time Li Yunqi disappeared. He was heading to the Worldwide Academy. As Li Guangxing had said, Shanghai didn't have such a treasure. If Shanghai dared to take it for themselves, they wouldn't live past the next day. Although Shanghai wasn't weak in the vast fifth dimension, Shanghai wasn't considered the top. There weren't many forces that could destroy Shanghai, but there weren't many either. Therefore, when he obtained this treasure, Li Guangxing had already decided to hand it over. Of course he wouldn't hand it over for nothing. Shanghai could use it to obtain many benefits. Li Guangxing glanced around, a trace of doubt in his eyes. At this moment he suddenly remembered something. Just now, someone had secretly helped him. Who was it that helped him? What was the other party's goal? Li Guangxing frowned. On the other side, Yi Xian was sitting cross-legged in space. He asked in his heart, "Miss Lian Qian, just now I saw them use that talisman. What kind of talisman was it?" A moment later, Lian Qian's voice rang out. "In this world, there's a profession known as a talisman master. This kind of person can gather all sorts of powerful energies and spatial divine abilities, and then draw them into a talisman. With this kind of talisman, even if you're an ordinary person, you'll still be able to release a powerful force. There are also strong and weak talismans. From weak to strong, they are blue, red, purple, orange, and the legendary black. The higher the level of the talisman, the more power it contains." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "In other words, this kind of power isn't your own?" Lian Qian said, "Yes. However, these runes are like your executing heaven sword. Do you think the executing heaven sword is considered your own power?" Yi Xian was silent. Lian Qian continued, In the fifth dimension there are not only talisman masters, but there are also alchemists and some refiners. These professions have extremely high statuses in the fifth dimension. In the past, before I went down, our fifth dimension already had talisman sect, medicine king sect and refiner sect. These sects are extremely powerful and are only second to some special forces. Yi Xian asked, what special forces? Lian Chen said, for example, the Azura Hao. Yi Xian frowned. Why is Linger a special force? The blacksmith said, I can't explain it to you either. In short, that place isn't simple. Even the current Myriad Dimension Academy doesn't dare to provoke that place. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Miss Lian Qian, what is the strongest power in the fifth dimension? Lian Qian said, it used to be the Myriad Dimension Academy because Master was there, but after Master disappeared, it might have been the Master of the fifth dimension. However, so much time has passed so this place must have changed. Therefore I don't know. Yi Xian nodded slightly. At this time, Lian Qian said, don't look down on those runes, especially those that have reached the purple level. The power contained within these runes is extremely powerful. You might not be able to resist it. Yi Xian frowned. So powerful? Lian Qian said, it is very powerful. Take a purple power rune for example. The power it contains is not inferior to your current power. Most importantly, it only needs to consume a bit of the user's spirit chi. If you were to use a powerful power, it would consume a lot of your own spirit chi. If this goes on, you'll definitely be at a disadvantage. And if you encounter an orange rune, the power of this rune is even more powerful. You must be extremely careful when you encounter this kind of rune. Don't be careless. Yi Xian suddenly said, Miss Lian Qian, what rank is my Dao Law in this place? Lian Qian was silent. Yi Xian asked, what's wrong? Lian Qian said, I almost forgot about this. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. What do you mean? Lian Qian said, runes are within the scope of laws and Dao laws are higher than laws. To put it simply, if you have the spatial Dao law, then all spatial runes are useless against you. In other words, you can easily suppress the other party. And your Dao law is a rune that targets the power of the earth and the power of the earth veins. In any case, as long as the other party borrows the power of the earth, your Dao law can suppress them. Yi Xian suddenly asked, what about the Dao law of dreams? Lian Qian said, in this world there are some mysterious cultivators who specialize in the power of dreams. I remember that there was a dream accessing sect in the past. This sect had asked Master many times for the Dao law of dreams, but Master didn't give it to them because the sect leader of the dream accessing sect was very ambitious. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Lian Qian, in other words, as long as you are here, any sealing runes are useless against me, right? Lian Qian said, you can say that. Yi Xian smiled slightly. At this moment he realized how terrifying the Dao laws he possessed were. At this moment Lian Qian suddenly said, you have to be careful of a profession, curse masters. These people are very strange. If you encounter them, you must not underestimate them. Yi Xian was a little curious. What's a curse master? Lian Qian said, it's a rather evil profession. Back then the founder of this profession was the Cursed Woman. She once used an extremely powerful forbidden heavenly curse technique on Master. However, she brought disgrace upon herself. In the end she was suppressed and sealed by Master. However, this woman was also very powerful back then. Especially those curse techniques of hers, they are very strange. Because their curse techniques are based on karma, once you are entangled by them, you will be plagued by bad luck. In short, if you encounter such people you have to be very careful. Yi Xian nodded, understood. Lian Qian continued, if there's a chance, you can find a powerful blacksmith and ask him to help you inscribe runes on your executing heaven sword. Yi Xian said in a low voice, do I need to inscribe runes on my sword too? Lian Qian said, runes can't replace your sword, but they can play a very good supporting role. For example, if there's an additional purple rune on your sword, the power of your sword will become even stronger. Or, if there's an additional rune that reduces consumption, then when you use this executing heaven sword, the consumption of spiritual energy will be greatly reduced. Yi Xian was a little curious, can it be done like this? Lian Qian said, yes, you can try it in the future. Yi Xian nodded. He raised his head and looked not far away. At this moment, several powerful auras came from the horizon. Jun Wuxian and the others had arrived. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. The show was about to start. In the sky above Shanghai, Li Guangxing looked at the horizon. He smiled coldly without a trace of fear. Soon Jun Wuxian and the others appeared in front of Li Guangxing. Jun Wuxian looked at Li Guangxing and slowly clenched his right hand. Just as he was about to attack, Li Guangxing suddenly said, "Everyone, do you really want to fight to the death?" Jun Wuxian looked at Li Guangxing. "If this item was obtained by your Shanghai Li clan, my Qing nation would definitely not touch it. However, this item was not obtained by your Li clan alone. It was obtained by everyone together. What right does your Li clan have to keep it to yourself?" Li Guangxing said in a low voice, "Jun Wuxian, if it wasn't for Yunqi's plan, we wouldn't have been able to obtain this item. Therefore it's only right that this item belongs to the Li family." Jun Wuxian still wanted to say something, but Lin Miaoyin suddenly spoke up, "Why are you wasting time with him? He's obviously trying to take it for himself." As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward and squatted down. At the same time, the guqin behind her appeared in front of her. She lightly plucked it with her fingers. The sound of the guqin resounded abruptly, and then the space in front of Li Guangxing was suddenly torn apart. Li Guangxing's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly stretched out his arms. After that, a pair of golden bracers appeared on his arms, and then he crisscrossed his arms and suddenly raised them forward to block the attack. Bang! 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 Numerous explosions resounded incessantly in the surroundings. Strands of white light that were as thin as a needle and thread were shuttling about incessantly around Li Guangxing, and Li Guangxing used his arms to resist them. Bang! Bang! Li Guangxing retreated repeatedly. A short moment later, he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then a ray of golden light suddenly erupted from his arms. Bang! The space in the surroundings trembled violently, and then it started to crack like a spider web. On Li Guangxing's arms were two strings that were as thin as a needle and thread. Moreover, countless cracks had appeared on Li Guangxing's golden bracers as well. The corners of Li Guangxing's mouth curled up slightly as he gazed at Lin Miaoyin. What a great sound attack! It really does live up to its reputation. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly pressed his palms together, and the bracers suddenly fused into a golden spear. He leaped up and stabbed the spear down from midair, and then a ray of light rained down from the tip of the spear like an umbrella. Lin Miaoyin glanced up at the sky, and then she suddenly pressed her hands against the zither strings. In the next moment she suddenly released them. Bang! A deafening sound of a zither suddenly resounded, and then a ray of white light shot into the sky and enveloped Li Guangxing within it. Rumble! The space in the surroundings trembled, and then both of them retreated repeatedly. After Li Guangxing stopped moving, he gazed at the spear in his hand, and it had completely cracked apart. He waved his right hand lightly, and then a violet talisman suddenly appeared on the spear. In next to no time, the spear started to repair itself at an extremely swift pace. Lin Miaoyin suddenly said, "Let's attack together." Jun Wuxian nodded slightly, and he was just about to attack when a formidable aura suddenly appeared in the distance. Li Guangxing suddenly roared with laughter when he noticed the formidable aura. Ha ha ha! It didn't take long for an old man in a white robe to appear in front of Li Guangxing. There was a small dimensional character on his chest. An expert from Myriad Dimension Academy. The old man gazed at Li Guangxing. "Where's the treasure?" Li Guangxing smiled. "So it's Elder Li Jinwu. Welcome to Shanghai, Elder Li." Li Jinwu gazed at Li Guangxing. "The treasure?" Li Guangxing nodded slightly and then he opened his palm. However, there was nothing in his palm. Li Guangxing frowned slightly, and then his expression changed in next to no time. "The World Prison Pagoda? The pagoda?" Li Guangxing's face was filled with astonishment. P.S. Because of the inspection, the update was delayed. Sorry. Chapter 862. At this moment, Li Guangxing's face was pale, and his hands were trembling. The pagoda had vanished. He didn't know how it had vanished. All he knew was that if he didn't take out the pagoda now, he would die without a complete corpse. Not only would he die without a complete corpse, but Shanghai would be dragged down as well. But why did the pagoda vanish? Li Guangxing's mind was filled with questions. Meanwhile, Li Jinwu from the Worldwide Academy frowned. "What's wrong?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice. "The pagoda is gone." "It's gone?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Li Jinwu was slightly stunned as well, and then his eyes narrowed slightly while a cold glint flickered within them. "Are you playing with the old man?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice. "Elder Li, the treasure really has vanished." "How dare you!" Li Jinwu suddenly roared furiously, and then he flicked his sleeve, causing a powerful force to sweep out. Bang! Li Guangxing instantly retreated explosively. On the other side in the dark, Yi Xian's gaze fell on Li Jinwu and he was somewhat shocked. This old man's strength was not ordinary. Li Guangxing felt extremely aggrieved. He knew that he and Shanghai had been schemed against. Who schemed against me? As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly gazed at Jun Wuyin and the others. It's all of you. You're the ones who framed Shanghai. Jun Wuyin gazed at Li Guangxing. Li Guangxing, continue your performance. We'll just watch quietly. Li Guangxing gazed at Li Jinwu. Elderly, they're definitely the ones who joined forces to frame Shanghai. Elderly, please investigate this. Li Jinwu looked at Li Guangxing. You asked your Shanghai disciples to inform me that the treasure is in your hands. Just now when I asked you, you were prepared to give it to me. But now you're telling me that they framed you. Do you think I'm stupid? Li Guangxing's expression was quite unsightly. Li Jinwu's eyes narrowed slightly. Li Guangxing, according to the old man, you're trying to take the treasure of the worldwide academy for yourself. The old man will give you one last chance. If you don't hand it over, then the old man will torture you today. Li Guangxing's expression was ugly to the extreme. At this moment he felt extremely wronged. Seeing that Li Guangxing didn't speak, Li Jinwu suddenly disappeared. Li Guangxing was greatly alarmed when he saw this scene. He immediately turned around and ran. His speed was extremely fast and in the blink of an eye he entered Demonic City. But in next to no time, a powerful force directly sent him flying. Everyone was stunned. An old man walked out of Demonic City. Li Guangxing, who was blasted flying, hurriedly said, "Ancestor, save me." Ancestor. The old man in front of him was the #1 figure in Shanghai, Li Yanqing. Li Yanqing didn't look at Li Guangxing. Instead he looked at Li Jinwu, who was not far away. Brother Li, you should know that even if you gave us 100 guts, we wouldn't dare to take this item for ourselves. Moreover, if we wanted to take this item for ourselves, we wouldn't have informed you. Li Jinwu said, then give me an explanation. Li Yanqing nodded. Of course. As he spoke he looked at Li Guangxing. Explain? Li Guangxing said in a low voice, it was still in my spatial ring just now. But when Elderly came here, the treasure suddenly disappeared. Jun Wuxian sneered. Suddenly disappeared? Can't you make up a better reason? This chapter isn't finished. Please continue. Li Guangxing said in a low voice, I feel that someone is framing Demonic City. Meanwhile, Jun Wuxian shook his head. I feel that Demonic City is treating us like fools. As he spoke he looked at Li Jinwu. Elderly, we can all testify that the treasure is in Li Guangxing's hands. In my opinion, the Li family wants to take it for themselves. Elderly, I suggest that we directly destroy Demonic City. Jun Wuxian. Li Guangxing stared fixedly at Jun Wuxian. You want my Li family to die so badly? What? Is the death of my Li family beneficial to you? Jun Wuxian smiled. Li Guangxing, what did you say to us before? Such a divine item, if you have the strength to obtain it, you can run away with it. Now, you called Elderly of the Myriad Dimensional Academy over and told him that the pagoda disappeared. Are you insulting our intelligence? Li Guangxing was about to speak when Li Jinwu suddenly said, Li family, the old man doesn't want to waste words with you. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't hand over the treasure, Demonic City will disappear from this world today. Li Yanqing looked at Li Guangxing. That item, is it in your hands? Li Guangxing shook his head. It's not in my hands. When he spoke up to here, he seemed to have thought of something and he hurriedly said, when Chi and I used the spatial talisman to escape earlier, someone was helping us from the shadows. It's absolutely that person who helped us. Right, it's absolutely that person who's playing tricks. Sigh. Li Yanqing shook his head and sighed. Such a divine item fell into your hands so easily. Even if you think with your toes, you should know that it's not normal. Li Guangxing slightly lowered his head. I was stupid. Li Yanqing looked at Li Jinwu. Brother Li, has this matter been resolved? Li Jinwu was about to speak when Li Yanqing suddenly said, actually, Brother Li should also know that there's something fishy about this matter. Firstly, Yi Xian handing over the item so easily is not normal. Secondly, Yun Qi being able to bring it back so easily is also not normal. Thirdly, Guangxing isn't stupid. If he really wanted to keep the item for himself, he wouldn't have sent someone to invite Brother Li. To be honest, the life and death of Demonic City isn't important. What's important is that if we are all used by others to kill each other, then the real mastermind will definitely laugh his head off. At this point he cupped his fists at the crowd. Everyone, we have more or less a grudge between us. However, there is indeed something fishy about today's matter. Please give my Li family a chance and let my Li family investigate this matter thoroughly. Of course, during the investigation, no one from my Li family will leave Demonic City. If we can't find anything, the old man and Guangxing are willing to pay with their lives. Hearing this, everyone was silent. Although everyone wanted Li Guangxing to die, they weren't stupid. Now that they thought about it, the matter was indeed fishy. The Worldwide Academy spent so much money but still couldn't obtain a fifth-dimensional treasure, yet a little disciple from the Li family managed to obtain it. Moreover, he even brought it back safely. Was this normal? It was definitely not normal. Could it be that someone was secretly planning all of this? Li Jinwu was also silent. He was the clearest about how much the Academy had paid for the World Prison Pagoda. Even so, the Academy still couldn't bring it back. However, this Li Yunqi from the Li family actually obtained it so easily. On the way here, he felt that something was wrong. Not far away, Li Guangxing suddenly said, "Yes, this matter itself is fishy." Speaking up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something and he hurriedly said, "Maybe it was Yi Xian who did it." This chapter isn't finished, please continue. This person has a meticulous mind. Furthermore, he isn't a useless person. It's impossible for him to hand over this item so easily. Yet he handed it over so easily. There's definitely something fishy going on. I feel that he's the mastermind behind this. Perhaps he's here. Yi Xian is here? Everyone glanced at the surroundings, but they didn't notice anything. Right at this moment, Lin Miaoyin suddenly said, "Let's not talk about that for now. Li Guangxing, you said that the treasure isn't on you. Do you dare to let me search you?" Li Guangxing spoke in a low voice, "Sure." Lin Miaoyin looked at Li Jinwu and the latter looked at Li Guangxing. Li Jinwu's gaze fell on a spatial ring on Li Guangxing's hand. He pointed at it and the spatial ring exploded. As soon as the ring exploded, a small black pagoda appeared in front of everyone. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they saw this black pagoda. Even Li Guangxing himself was petrified. "You still here?" Li Guangxing's face was filled with disbelief. This. Li Jinwu's expression instantly became ferocious when he saw the black Xiaota. "Li Guangxing, you actually dared to play tricks on the old man. Die for the old man." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged over. Li Guangxing's expression instantly changed when he saw Li Jinwu suddenly attack. He wasn't a match for Li Jinwu at all, so he immediately turned around and ran towards Li Nianxing. "Ancestor, save me." Meanwhile, Li Nianxing suddenly vanished. He attacked. However, he didn't attack Li Jinwu but Li Guangxing. He was extremely swift, and Li Guangxing's head was smashed into pieces before Li Guangxing could even react. As soon as Li Guangxing's soul appeared, Li Nianxing waved his right hand, and a strand of flames enveloped Li Guangxing's soul. H. Li Guangxing's miserable and shrill cries resounded incessantly from within the flames. It didn't take long for him to vanish completely. Everyone looked at Li Nianxing. Li Nianxing sent the World Prison Pagoda to Li Jinwu. "Elderly, this item originally belonged to the Myriad Dimension Academy. Now it shall be returned to its rightful owner." Li Jinwu glanced at Li Nianxing. Then he put the World Prison Pagoda away before turning around and leaving. Jun Wuyin and the others fell silent when they saw Li Jinwu leave. They knew that Li Jinwu had given up on destroying the capital. Needless to say, Li Nianxing was very smart. If he didn't kill Li Guangxing, then the entire capital would be in danger. But he'd killed Li Guangxing himself, and it could be said to have calmed Li Jinwu's rage. Li Nianxing glanced at Jun Wuyin and the others. "Everyone, this item has fallen into the hands of the Myriad Dimension Academy. If you want it, then go look for them." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Jun Wuyin and the others fell silent for a moment before leaving as well. Go look for the Myriad Dimension Academy? Naturally, they did not dare to look for him. This Myriad Dimensional Academy was not Demonic City. Although the prophet was no longer around, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This Myriad Dimensional Academy was still one of the top powers in the fifth dimension. In next to no time, everyone dispersed. Down below in the capital, Li Nianxing suddenly stopped and said in a light voice, "I know you're in the shadows. This matter was caused by my Li clan's greed and my Li clan deserves it. My Li clan won't take revenge, so I hope you can be magnanimous and let my Li clan off." After a short moment, the space behind Li Nianxing trembled slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. Li Nianxing slowly closed his eyes. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 863. Revenge? It wasn't that Lin Yinxing hadn't thought about revenge, but he knew that he couldn't do it. He had already guessed that the person behind all of this was Yi Xian. Because if the World Prison Pagoda was so easy to obtain, why would Myriad Dimension Academy return empty-handed and issue an arrest warrant? There was only one explanation for Yi Xian handing it over so easily, and that was to divert the conflict. And Yi Xian had succeeded. If he wanted to take revenge, then Li Guangxing wouldn't be the only one who would die, but the entire Shanghai. The Li family couldn't get involved in this mess. Lin Yinxing sighed softly and walked down. At this moment he seemed to be getting older. Yi Xian didn't stay in Shanghai. Instead, he followed Li Jinwu from Myriad Dimension Academy in the dark. He knew that humans were greedy, and as long as they had greed, he could use it. Yi Xian followed him, and the two of them got closer and closer to Myriad Dimension Academy. In the dark, Yi Xian looked at Li Jinwu with doubt in his eyes. Could this guy really be so selfless? Just at this moment, Li Jinwu suddenly stopped. In the dark, Yi Xian stopped as well. He quietly looked at Li Jinwu, who just stood there. After about 15 minutes, Li Jinwu opened his palm, and the World Prison Pagoda appeared in his hand. Looking at the World Prison Pagoda, Li Jinwu's eyes flashed with hesitation. Greed? He didn't have such thoughts. Because he knew that if he had such thoughts, he would die without a complete corpse. His position in Myriad Dimension Academy wasn't low, but if he dared to covet this item, not only would he lose his current position, he would also die a horrible death. This treasure wasn't something someone with his strength could possess. However, he was still curious. After looking at the World Prison Pagoda for a long time, the hesitation in Li Jinwu's eyes turned into determination. In the end, he chose not to think about the World Prison Pagoda. He knew that once a person opened the door to greed, it wouldn't be closed again. Thinking of this, Li Jinwu prepared to put away the World Prison Pagoda. However, at this moment, the World Prison Pagoda suddenly trembled. Then the door to the first level of Xiao Ta's pagoda opened. Seeing this, Li Jinwu was stunned. The tower door opened? Could it be that the prison pagoda had acknowledged him? Thinking of this, Li Jinwu was a little excited, but he forced himself to calm down. At this time, Xiao Ta slightly trembled as if he was trying to express something. Li Jinwu hesitated for a moment before asking softly, "You want to recognize me as your master?" Xiao Ta quickly nodded. Seeing this, Li Jinwu could not help but clench his fists. At this moment he was feeling extremely complicated. He never thought that Xiao Ta would want to recognize him as his master. Hesitation. He was very rational. He knew that once this Xiao Ta recognized him as his master, he would become a traitor of Myriad Dimension Academy. At that time, his enemies would spread throughout the entire fifth dimension. Could they have this tower? Reason told him that he couldn't accept it. However, on the contrary, this was also a great opportunity. This was a treasure left behind by a prophet. If he could obtain it, he would definitely obtain great fortune. Hesitation. At this moment he was unprecedentedly conflicted. At this time, the World Prison Pagoda suddenly trembled, and then lightly floated in front of him, lightly rubbing against his hand. It was very intimate. He could feel that this Xiao Ta was very eager to recognize him as his master. In the same place, Li Jinwu was silent for a very long time. Finally he slowly closed his eyes. About a quarter of an hour later he suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head to look at the horizon and softly said, "In life we often need to gamble." With that, he grabbed the World Prison Pagoda, turned around and disappeared into the boundless horizon. This direction was completely opposite to Myriad Dimension Academy. In the dark, the corner of Yi Xian's mouth slightly rose. He looked at the crystal ball in his hand. Just now, he had used this crystal ball to record everything that had just happened. At this time, Lian Qian's voice suddenly resounded in his mind. "You're really bad." Yi Xian laughed. "They're worse than me, aren't they?" Lian Qian said, "You still need to focus on increasing your strength." Yi Xian nodded. "I know." As he said this, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately asked, "Miss Lian Qian, how are the realms in the fifth dimension divided? Or is it the same as the fourth dimension?" Lian Qian said, "Of course it's different. The realms in the fifth dimension are a bit more complicated than the realms in the fourth dimension." Yi Xian said, "Miss Lian Qian, please enlighten me." Lian Qian softly said, "At the beginning of heaven and earth, all living things were born. Vitality began to sprout, establishing the universe, awakening the yin and yang, distributing vitality, giving birth to harmony. This is how humans are. Humans have 8 extraordinary meridians which are born in the body. The number of meridians is innumerable. They harmonize the center, which is the source of spirit. Those who are capable can comprehend the order of the 4 seasons of heaven and earth, learn the breathing method of the 8 extraordinary meridians, close their eyes and enter the path of cultivation. They can see the location of their body and soul, which is as small as a grain in the sky, but as bright as the universe. Only then can they cleanse their heart and change their marrow. Speaking up to this point, she slightly paused, then continued, the realms here are related to the 8 extraordinary meridians of a person. I won't tell you about the lower realms. The primordial realm, establishing the universe, awakening the yin and yang, understanding life and death, breaking through the mysteries of heaven, understanding karma, and entering the cycle of reincarnation. Your realm in the 4th dimension is the life-breaking realm. Here, in terms of battle strength, it's equivalent to this world's cosmos realm. Strictly speaking, it's not even that. Of course, your battle strength has at least reached the yin-yang realm. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, what does establishing the universe mean? Lian Qian said, Qian is the sky and Kuan is the earth. Qian Kuan refers to heaven and earth. Establishing the universe means that you have a certain understanding of heaven and earth. For example, you know how spiritual qi is formed, how space is formed, and the nature of all living things. You're equivalent to a cosmos realm now. However, you're a swordsman, and a swordsman who has broken through to the next realm. In addition, you have the executing heaven sword, the soul-suppressing sword, the special bloodline, and your body. Therefore, your battle strength is not lower than a yin-yang realm expert. However, if you meet a life and death realm expert, you're no match for him. Yi Xian asked, what realm is Qin Tian? Lian Qian said, at least heaven's secret. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked again, what about the woman in the plain dress? The woman in the plain dress. Lian Qian was silent. Yi Xian asked, what's wrong? Lian Qian said softly, she can even sever karma. Therefore she's at least. No, she can't be measured by realm. She's not within the rules. So, please don't ask me such stupid questions next time. Otherwise I'll hit you. Yi Xian was speechless. Lian Qian continued, you have to remember that one's cultivation level isn't everything. Take you for example. You're very deceptive because your cultivation level is low, but your battle prowess is high. Of course, it's because of your bloodline and that set of godly equipment you have. Yi Xian nodded. Zhang Xian nodded. I understand. Lian Qian continued, other than that there are some special professions such as those spell masters and some talisman masters. In short, don't underestimate anyone. Underestimate? Yi Xian shook his head. How could he dare to underestimate others? Unbeknownst to him, people often died because they underestimated their enemies. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian turned around and left. This matter wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just the beginning. The current him couldn't face these experts from the 5th dimension head-on. Myriad Dimensional Academy. Myriad Dimensional Academy was built on a cliff that was tens of thousands of meters high. This cliff was the famous ocean cliff of the 5th dimension. It was also the place where the Prophet established Myriad Dimensional Academy. There were countless worldwide academies, but there was only one Myriad Dimensional Academy, and that was this place. This place could be said to be the holy land in the hearts of countless worldwide academy students. Somewhere in the library, Qin Tian was sitting quietly. In his hand was an ancient book. At this time, an old man quietly appeared not far from Qin Tian. The old man said softly, entering the martial realm disappeared. It can be confirmed. After a moment of silence, Qin Tian said softly, greed. The old man said softly, yes, I shouldn't have let him go. I should have gone myself. Qin Tian shook his head. Entering the martial realm has followed you for so many years. You should be very clear about his personality. He isn't the kind of person who can't resist temptation. There's something fishy about this matter. The old man nodded. That Yi Xian handed over the world prison pagoda so easily. This matter is extremely strange. According to my investigation, although this person is a swordsman, he is very cunning and often uses despicable methods. This time he must be playing some kind of trick. After saying this, he paused and said, if I'm not wrong, he might have already arrived in the 5th dimension. Qin Tian smiled. This person is quite scheming. Interesting. The old man said in a deep voice, what should we do now? Qin Tian said softly, find Jin Wu. Of course, find him secretly. Don't let others know that he has already left my 10,000 Dimensions Academy with the World Prison Pagoda. The old man nodded. If others knew that Li Jinwu had escaped with the World Prison Pagoda, needless to say, there would definitely be countless people looking for Li Jinwu. At that time, the matter would become even more chaotic. The old man turned around and left. Qin Tian stood up and looked in front of him. There was a portrait in front of him. It was the portrait of the plain-clothed woman. Qin Tian looked at the portrait of the plain-clothed woman and said with a smile, "Don't you like to play chess? Then I'll accompany you. This Yixin's life is mine. No one can protect him." Jingshan City. This was a small city that didn't belong to any faction. On this day, a man came to the small city. This man was Yixin. Yixin looked around. There weren't many people in the city. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that he found that there was no difference between the people here and the people in the fourth dimension. Yixin came to the center of the city. This place was quite bustling. There were many people and they were all cultivators. Yixin opened his palm and a crystal ball flew out from his hand. The crystal ball flew into the air and in next to no time, a scene appeared on the battlefield. It was the scene of Li Jinwu fleeing with the World Prison Pagoda. There was even sound and it was exactly the same. Everyone in the surroundings was looking at the scene revealed by the crystal ball. Yixin smiled and turned around to leave. At this moment he suddenly frowned. Beside him, a sharp gaze was staring at him. "P.S. Your monthly votes are mine." Chapter 864. Yixin turned around and saw a man standing not far away. No, it was a woman. However, she was dressed as a man. The woman had sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Her gaze was as sharp as a blade, giving off an invisible pressure. Yixin ignored her and turned to leave. In the distance, the woman's lips curled up. "Interesting." After saying that, she followed him. Yixin left the town. He had achieved his goal. He knew that it wouldn't be long before many people in the fifth dimension knew that Li Jinwu had escaped with the treasure. As a result, there would definitely be countless people looking for Li Jinwu. As long as there were people looking for Li Jinwu, his goal would be achieved. After Yixin left the small town, he walked towards the deep mountains in the distance. The woman followed behind him. She was brazenly following him. After entering the mountains, Yixin stopped. Behind him, the woman smiled. "This place is not bad. It's a good place to kill." Yixin turned to look at the woman. "You are." The woman smiled. "Xiahou Jin." Yixin said, "Why do you keep following me?" The woman sized up Yixin and smiled. "How should I address you?" Yixin said, "Why do you keep following me?" The woman stopped not far from Yixin. She looked at Yixin and smiled. "You are Yixin." Yixin frowned. He was shocked. The person in front of him knew his true identity. Who was this person? Without thinking too much, Yixin clenched his right hand. He was filled with killing intent. Xiahou Jin smiled. "Young Master Yi wants to kill me to silence me?" Yixin was silent. Xiahou Jin smiled. "Young Master Yi, since I dared to follow you, do you think I would be afraid of you killing me? Of course, let me state that I have nothing to do with the Worldwide Academy. Moreover, I'm not young Master Ye's enemy." "How did you know my identity?" Yixin asked softly. This was what he was most curious about. Xiahou Jin said with a smile, "I also have some understanding of Li Yunqi from the Li family. Among the younger generation of the Li family, he is considered a well-known figure. However, in my opinion, he still doesn't have the ability to obtain the fifth-dimensional treasure. And he got it, and he even got it so easily. There's only one explanation, and that's young Master Yi gave it to him on purpose." Yixin said, "How can you be so sure?" Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "Because I've investigated young Master Yi." Young Master Yi had come this far from being an unpopular disciple of a small family. How could he be an ordinary person? Moreover, according to my investigation, young Master Yi's strength should far surpass that of Li Yunqi and the rest. Moreover, young Master Yi isn't the kind of person who's afraid of death. Therefore, young Master Yi took the initiative to hand over this item. It's obvious that he wants to shift the conflict. Young Master Yi is protecting himself, and also protecting the four-dimensional universe." Yixin was silent. Xiahou Jin continued, "Now, young Master Yi has played the Worldwide Academy in the palm of his hand through this pagoda. I have to say, young Master Yi is really amazing. If my guess is correct, the fifth-dimensional treasure has already recognized young Master Yi as its master. Because without its cooperation, it's impossible for young Master Yi to use it." Yixin was still silent. However, a ray of sword light had already appeared in his palm. He wasn't a merciful person. If he met someone who deserved to be killed, he definitely wouldn't be lenient. Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, let me give you a piece of advice. Do you want to hear it?" Yi Xian said, "Speak." Xiahou Jin said, "These plans of yours are very good and they've all succeeded. However, those big shots must have already seen through your schemes. And they, including the Worldwide Academy, must have already guessed that you're the mastermind behind all this." Yi Xian smiled and said, "And then?" Xiahou Jin was about to speak, but suddenly she seemed to have thought of something. She glanced at Yi Xian and said, "This isn't a conspiracy at all, it's an open conspiracy. As long as they want that treasure, as long as they're greedy, they'll fall into your trap." Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin and didn't say anything. Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and said, "Young Master Yi, you're playing with fire." Yi Xian said softly, "Miss Xiahou, if I'm not wrong, you and I didn't meet by chance. You came to find me on purpose, right?" Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "Yes." Yi Xian said, "Miss Xiahou, if there's anything you want to say, just say it. As you know, I'm a little busy right now." Xiahou Jin smiled slightly and said, "Young Master Yi, I want to make a deal with you." Yi Xian nodded and said, "Tell me about it." Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and said, "We want to borrow the Tao laws of sealing in this pagoda." Tao laws of sealing. Mian Xian. Yi Xian said, "You want to borrow the Tao laws of sealing?" Xiahou Jin nodded and said, "Yes." Yi Xian said, "What can I get in return?" Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "You'll get an ally." Yi Xian shook his head and said, "Give me something practical." Ally? He didn't believe her. Some people could share riches but they couldn't share hardships. Moreover, he completely believed that this person in front of him and the people behind him wouldn't become enemies with the Worldwide Academy because of him. Therefore, it was better to give him some practical benefits. Xiahou Jin smiled and said, "How about this? 2 purple talismans." Purple talismans. Yi Xian was about to speak when Lian Qian suddenly said, "Ask her for an orange talisman." Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin and said, "I want an orange talisman." Xiahou Jin shook her head and said, "Young Master Yi, we're just borrowing your Tao laws of sealing, not asking for them. Aren't you asking for too much?" Yi Xian turned around and left. At this moment, Xiahou Jin suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, I think the Worldwide Academy would be very interested in your whereabouts." Yi Xian suddenly disappeared as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. Xiahou Jin frowned slightly and looked around. However, she didn't find Yi Xian. Yi Xian disappeared? Xiahou Jin used her divine sense to sweep the surroundings once more, but she still didn't find Yi Xian. Right at this moment, a strand of sword light suddenly appeared behind Xiahou Jin. Xiahou Jin's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she forcefully flashed over 30 m to the right. However, one of her arms had flown off. However, the space she was in had exploded apart, and the force of the explosion caused Yi Xian to retreat repeatedly. In the distance, Xiahou Jin, who'd lost an arm, gazed at Yi Xian. She was just about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly vanished, and a strand of sword light instantly appeared in front of her. Xiahou Jin's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw this scene. She tapped the tip of her foot lightly, and a green light flashed beneath her feet. When Yi Xian's sword arrived before her, she'd vanished. Yi Xian's sword stabbed air, and he immediately turned invisible. Both of them had vanished. But right at this moment, the space in the surroundings suddenly trembled, and Xiahou Jin's expression changed drastically. Spatial Tao Law. She'd just finished speaking when the space in front of her split apart, and then a strand of sword light stabbed out. What a swift sword strike. Xiahou Jin was shocked. She suddenly pushed her fair hand forward, and a violet talisman appeared at the center of her palm. There was a huge word inscribed on the talisman, "Defend." At the instant that Yi Xian's sword stabbed over, the word "Defend" suddenly transformed into a shield of light that blocked in front of her. Bang! Along with an explosion, the shield of light exploded apart, and Xiahou Jin was blasted back. Xiahou Jin was shocked when she saw this scene. She hadn't expected that a single strike of Yi Xian's sword would actually destroy her defensive violet talisman. Yi Xian's sword. Xiahou Jin's expression became extremely solemn as she gazed at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. The sword in Yi Xian's hand wasn't an ordinary sword at all. Xiahou Jin hurriedly said when she saw that Yi Xian was about to attack again, "Young Master Yi, my words were rude just now. Young Master Yi, please forgive me." However, Yi Xian didn't hold back. This time, Xiahou Jin didn't dodge. When Yi Xian's sword was still 1.5 m away from her, she suddenly said, "I'll give you the orange talisman." Yi Xian's sword stopped moving and he looked at Xiahou Jin. Give it to me. Xiahou Jin said in a low voice, it's not on me. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xian's sword stabbed half an inch into the space between her brows. Meanwhile, Xiahou Jin suddenly said, I can give it to you. Yi Xian put his sword away and glanced coldly at Xiahou Jin. Are you trying to paint a picture for me? Xiahou Jin said in a low voice, I mean what I say. At this point she looked at Yi Xian. We have no intention of becoming enemies with you. We just want to cooperate with you. Believe me, if we cooperate, it will be very beneficial to you. Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin. Cooperation is fine, but I don't like it when others threaten me. Xiahou Jin nodded. I understand. At this moment she realized that she had seriously underestimated Yi Xian's strength. Yi Xian was much stronger than what she had investigated, at least a few times stronger. Xiahou Jin said softly, Brother Yi, follow me. Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin and said in his heart, Miss Lian Qian, is it worth the risk? Lian Qian said, an orange talisman is completely worth it. Moreover, you have the immeasurable sword. If things go south you can leave at any time. Yi Xian nodded slightly and followed her. On the way, Xiahou Jin suddenly smiled and said, Brother Yi, may I ask if the treasure of the fifth dimension has really recognized you as its master? Yi Xian said, Miss Xiahou, we are only cooperating, right? Xiahou Jin nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said, then don't ask so much. Also, I want to obtain that orange talisman first. Xiahou Jin was silent for a moment before nodding. Sure. Not long after, the two of them arrived in front of an ancient city. The city walls were covered with all kinds of mysterious runes. In addition, there was a huge rune in the sky above the city. The entire city looked extremely eerie. Seeing this city, Yi Xian frowned slightly. What was this place? Yi Xian looked at Xiahou Jin. What do you want me to do? Xiahou Jin said, I hope that Brother Yi can help us remove a seal. Yi Xian asked again, what seal? Xiahou Jin smiled. Brother Yi will know when the time comes. With that, she quickened her pace. Yi Xian glanced at Xiahou Jin before following her. At this moment, Lian Qian suddenly said, this place is a bit strange. Be careful. Yi Xian nodded. He suddenly stopped. At this moment, Xiahou Jin turned to look at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi? Yi Xian said, Miss Xiahou, I want that orange talisman. Xiahou Jin looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. At this moment, several powerful auras suddenly appeared on the scene. Yi Xian opened his palm and a sword appeared in his hand. I can't stop once I start killing. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.